Chapter 1501. Ning Shu's heavenly Tao's backlash this time was very serious. His soul was about to dissipate, and he couldn't see or hear for the time being. Ning Shu felt that her mission must be extremely difficult. How was she going to turn things around in such a situation? Unable to see with her eyes and unable to hear with her ears, Ning Shu's fighting strength had been greatly weakened. He could only rely on his spiritual power to observe the situation around him, but his spiritual power and soul were both heavily injured. The heavenly Tao's might was mixed with the power of lightning. It seemed like she was really pissed off. Previously, her spiritual power and soul power were all reflected. Now, she was impatient. Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and cultivated, using his spiritual power to repair his eyes and ears. In the morning, Yulioli came to call Ning Shu to go to the academy. Ning Shu couldn't hear, but he used his spiritual power to sense that Yulioli had entered the room. Ning Shu lay on the bed, not moving at all. Yulioli rolled her eyes. She didn't contract a peacock, but a pig. Go to the academy. Yulioli pushed Ning Shu. Since it was a contracted divine beast, it should be by her side. Ning Shu grunted. I'm still sleepy. I'm not going. I haven't had a good night's sleep since I came to your Yu family. Yulioli was speechless. Lazy people shit and pee a lot. Yulioli turned and left. Once Yulioli left, Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and began to cultivate. He couldn't be blind forever. The situation now was more serious than before. She had provoked the heavenly Tao. If there was a next time, Ning Shu felt that she would be directly destroyed. As expected, it was still too difficult to deal with the heavenly Tao. No, it wasn't too difficult, it was overestimating herself. She thought she could go against the heavenly Tao. Ning Shu stayed in the room all day to cultivate and repair his eyes. His eyes went from being completely black to being able to see light and blurry figures. Ning Shu looked at the little ball above his sea of consciousness and raised his middle finger. Alright, you're the boss, you're the boss. Yulioli saw Kong Lin lying on the bed every day, and her face was extremely dark. What a pig. When Yulioli came to call Ning Shu again, Ning Shu found an excuse. I think I'm going to fall into a deep sleep soon. After I fall into a deep sleep, I will undergo a tribulation. Don't call me so often, okay? Can't you tell me if you want to go into hibernation? How would I know that you're going into hibernation? You're like a lazy pig. What do I need to do while you're asleep? Jade Glazed asked. Her expression relaxed a bit, indicating that this peacock's strength could increase again. Just don't disturb me, Ning Shu said. Then do your best to transcend the tribulation, instructed Ning Shu. Ning Shu nodded and covered his head with the blanket. Yulioli had originally wanted to show concern for Ning Shu's needs and cheer him on. It was really embarrassing to cover his head like this. Was she his master or not? Why did it feel like Kong Lin was the master? Yulioli didn't disturb him from time to time to show that she was his master. Yulioli just wanted to remind Ning Shu to let Ning Shu know his place. Without Yulioli disturbing him, Ning Shu was able to cultivate without any worries. His eyes started to recover, and he could hear again. During this period of time, he had spent so much effort, causing injuries all over his body, but in the end, he gained nothing. Everything he did was for naught. Ning Shu let out a long sigh. He didn't know what the next mission would be like. Ning Shu felt like the reason why his mission was so difficult was because he chose to avoid it. If he couldn't complete this mission, he would have to do 6 more. 6. Ning Shu's mind was filled with 666. Footsteps could be heard at the door. Ning Shu retracted his strength and stopped cultivating. A maid came in and Ning Shu said, "Young master, the family head wants you to go to the study room." Ning Shu nodded and got down from the bed. "I can find the way this time. I don't need you to lead the way." Young master. Maid Ning Shu shouted. Hearing this sweet voice, Ning Shu had goosebumps all over his body. He quickly left. In the study room, Yu Xiongfei and Yu Linglong were talking. Seeing Ning Shu come in, Yu Linglong hurriedly bowed to Ning Shu. Many thanks to Senior for saving my life and bringing Linglong back to life. I will never be able to repay this great kindness. Come back to life. A light flashed in Ning Shu's mind. She slapped her thigh. That's right, why didn't she think of that? Since the contract could only be broken by death, then she would die. Ning Shu had always avoided death. If she wanted to live, she had to face it head-on. If she couldn't win against the laws of the world, then she could use normal methods to break the contract. If the contract could only be broken by death, then she would die at the right time. Ning Shu let out a long breath. She saw another path, but this path required a lot of preparation. Not bad, not bad. Ning Shu looked at Yu Linglong with a smile. It was Yu Linglong's words that gave him an idea. Yu Linglong saw Ning Shu staring at her and her face turned red. Being stared at by a male, and a very handsome one at that, of course she would feel shy. Senior, the things you asked me to prepare have been prepared. Yu Xiongfei saw a divine beast staring at his daughter. He was really afraid that this beast would have some improper thoughts about his granddaughter. Ning Shu smiled and nodded. I have other things for you to find. Help me prepare them. Ning Shu pushed a piece of paper in front of Yu Xiongfei. As for the things you prepared, I also want them. This time, what pill do you want to refine? I will refine it. Many thanks, Senior. This time, I have prepared the ingredients for the life essence pill. Yu Xiongfei said. Ning Shu looked at Yu Xiongfei. This pill is for you. I am ashamed. If I don't break through, this old man will turn into a pile of yellow soil. Eating the life essence pill can increase my lifespan and give me more time to break through. Yu Xiongfei said. Ning Shu nodded, okay. Ning Shu said to Yu Linglong, since you can cultivate, then cultivate well. You are you, Yu Liuli is Yu Liuli. You don't have to compare yourself with her. There were too many powerful people out there. If she was always jealous, what good would it do her? Linglong thanks Senior for the guidance. Yu Linglong bowed to Ning Shu. After experiencing this matter, Yu Linglong was much more mature than before. He would probably cherish the talent that he had lost and then regained. Ning Shu and Yu Xiongfei walked through the secret passage to the small courtyard where they refined pills. First, they refined the vitality pill that they needed. Her soul was in need of the vitality pill. She would not mind too much. After that, she refined the life essence pill. Yu Xiongfei probably did not have much lifespan left, which was why he was in a hurry to refine the life essence pill. The path of cultivation was filled with difficulties and difficulties. Every step was a test of one's talent and will. Ning Shu obtained another bottle of nourishing spirit pills and ate one of them. A cool feeling flowed through his soul. However, the effect was not as good as the first time. His body had developed a resistance to the pills. Moreover, if he ate too many pills, his body would produce pill toxins. The toxins would hide in the body and no one knew what side effects there would be. Chapter 1502. Ning Shu gave the life essence pill to Yu Xiongfei. This pill will only increase your lifespan by half. No matter how much you eat it in the future, it won't increase your lifespan. Lifespan was determined by the heavens. Eating a pill could increase it infinitely. How could there be such a good thing? Yu Xiongfei took the pill. It's already very good. If I really can't comprehend it, then it's my fate. Find the materials I asked you to find as soon as possible, Ning Shu instructed. After that, Ning Shu worked hard to cultivate and didn't leave his room. He wanted to be able to face the heavenly tribulation as soon as possible. When he had nothing to do, Ning Shu went out to look for talismans, cinnabar, and so on. He cut his finger and squeezed out some blood, mixing it with the cinnabar and preparing to draw talismans. Ning Shu sank his qi into his dantian and mobilized the spirit qi in his body to draw talismans. But footsteps sounded at the door. Ning Shu quickly put away the things on the table and stuffed them under the bed. Then, he lay down on the bed. Jade Glazed came in. Her nose twitched and she walked to the bedside. Ning Shu asked, "Why is there the smell of blood?" Ning Shu opened his eyes. "What smell of blood? I don't smell it. I'm very sensitive to the smell of blood." Jade Glazed sniffed again. "Okay, I didn't want to tell you," Ning Shu said helplessly. "I suffered from qi deviation and vomited blood." Jade Glazed had a doubtful expression. "Really?" Ning Shu nodded. "Really? I heard that you've been very close to my grandfather recently." Jade Glazed looked coldly at Ning Shu. Ning Shu's expression didn't change. "Who did you hear that from? There's no smoke without fire. What are you up to now?" Ning Shu asked Jade Glazed. "What could I be up to? I suffered from qi deviation and asked your grandfather for an ice heart pill," Ning Shu said. "And I'm your contracted beast. I can't do anything harmful to you." Ning Shu saw Jade Glazed's doubtful expression and calmly explained. Yu Liuli frowned. "I don't believe you. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do about it." Ning Shu's expression was as if it was up to him to believe it or not. "How did you get qi deviation?" Yu Liuli changed the topic. Ning Shu only said, "It's probably because she saw the colorful world of humans. Her mind isn't as pure as before." "I see that you're quite happy with the flowers," Jade Glaze said disdainfully. Ning Shu had an innocent look on his face. "When have I ever been a playboy?" In all honesty, even if her body was that of a man, her core was that of a woman. How could she do such a cruel thing? "Don't you like it when so many girls look at you?" He even waved at them. Did he really think that he was a charmer? Ning Shu shrugged. "If they want to see, I can't gouge out their eyelids, can I?" Yu Luli chuckled, her disdain evident on her face. Ning Shu was speechless. "Am I supposed to stare at you all the time? It's best if I don't find out that you and grandfather are doing something shady." "I suspect that grandfather sent someone to assassinate me that night," Yu Luli said to Ning Shu. Yu Luli also suspected Yu Xiongfei. They were family, but they wanted to kill each other. However, strictly speaking, Yu Luli was no longer Yu Ji's woman. She was Yu Xiongfei's granddaughter. Ning Shu nodded. "I know. Do you have some kind of pill on you?" Yu Luli's expression darkened. Ning Shu asked. Ning Shu was confused. "What pill?" "I'm asking you," Yu Luli said happily. "What pill are you talking about?" Ning Shu didn't understand. Yu Luli was silent for a moment, then said, "It's a pill that can repair the soul." Ning Shu, "Fuck, how did Yu Luli know? Was she exposed?" Ning Shu shook his head. "No. You do." "No. I know you do. Hurry up and take it out. I'm your master. Are you going to go against my orders?" Yu Luli looked anxious. If it weren't for the difference between men and women, she would have pounced on Ning Shu and snatched the pill. Ning Shu asked, "What do you want the pill for?" "Yin Tian fell into a deep sleep because of you. He needs the pill now," Yu Luli said. Ning Shu asked again, "Then how do you know I have the pill?" "Yin Tian told me." Yu Luli spread her hands. "Give it to me." Ning Shu shook his head. "I was punished by you twice. My soul is about to dissipate. I want to keep the pill for myself. Do you know why I went crazy? It's because my soul was damaged. It wasn't easy for me to get this pill." Yu Li sighed and apologized to Ning Shu. I was too impatient before. That's why I punished you. Give the pill to me first. Yin Tian is about to dissipate. Yin Tian in her consciousness was as transparent as a bubble. It burst with a single poke. Ning Shu was speechless. Yin Tian really had a dog's nose. He could even sense what she had on her. It was terrifying. Yin Tian might have already seen everything on Yu Li's body. Aren't you an alchemist? You can refine it. I stole this pill. I won't be able to steal it next time, Ning Shu said. Ning Shu really couldn't bear to give the vitality pill to Yu Li. Do you think soul-nourishing pills are cabbages? Yu Li only thought of herself as a genius alchemist. But with her current alchemy skills, it was still difficult for her to refine soul-nourishing pills. Give me the pill first. When I'm able to refine it, I'll refine it for you. Yu Li promised Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. But what about my injuries? Ning Shu said pitifully. You can still hold on, but Yin Tian is about to dissipate. There are priorities. I'll make it up to you in the future. Ning Shu took a deep breath. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to escape if he didn't take out the pill today. Ning Shu took out the jade bottle. There are 2 pills in here. Leave one for me. Yu Li took the jade bottle. I'll keep both pills first. I'll work hard to improve my alchemy skills. We have a long future ahead of us. Yin Tian can't wait, Ning Shu, we have a long future ahead of us. No way. Yu Li took the pill and left happily with a smile on her face. Yu Li, who was always arrogant and mocking, could smile so gently and sweetly. She looked just like a young girl. Ning Shu was flustered in the wind. He stuffed his hands into his sleeves and sat on the bed. He looked so pitiful that he was begging for food. She took away her pill so heartlessly. Ning Shu touched his pocket. There was still a bottle inside. Ha ha ha, Ning Shu popped a pill into his mouth and started cultivating. The next day, Yu Li came to Ning Shu again and asked, where did you steal the pill? Ning Shu was speechless. Don't tell me you're thinking of stealing it? Ning Shu asked. Yu Li nodded. I don't have a choice. The Yin Tian needs it now. Why was there such a huge difference between people? Chapter 1503. I stole from an auction house. I've already stolen everything. There's no point for you to go. Which auction house? Bring me, Yu Li said. Ning Shu was speechless. That's not a good idea. You've already lost something and now they're on high alert. Ning Shu rejected Yu Li tactfully. Who the hell knew which auction house it was? Even if it's a dangerous place, we still have to take the risk. Yin Tian's soul can't take it anymore, Yu Li said anxiously. Ning Shu, so touching, damn it. How should he deal with this? Was he really going to bring Yu Li to the auction house? I think it's better to bring the money to the auction house. Stealing won't work. Maybe the auction house has pills. Ning Shu shrugged. Yu Li looked worried. She didn't have money. She heard Yin Tian say that it was a high-grade pill. It definitely wouldn't be cheap. Ning Shu suggested, aren't you an alchemist? You can refine pills, sell them, and then buy those pills. Wouldn't that be enough? Yu Li glanced at Ning Shu. If she could refine pills to nourish the soul, why would she buy them? She could only refine low-grade pills now. Yu Li's expression froze. Then she said, I know. Cultivate well. With that, she turned and left. Ning Shu was speechless. How crazy. Yin Tian must have said something to Yu Li. No matter what they were up to, it was fine as long as they didn't disturb her. Ning Shu had been cultivating. Yuli left early and came back late. She didn't even go home. She didn't know what she was busy with. Anyway, the best way to get along was that you don't disturb me and I don't disturb you. Also, Yuli didn't trust her. No matter what she did, she wouldn't bring her along. Ning Shu waited for a long time. Finally, Yu Xiongfei prepared the ingredients she needed. She felt that she was about to go through a tribulation. If she didn't prepare now, it would be too late. Ning Shu got the ingredients and went to refine the pills she needed. After that, he drew a talisman and put it on his body. Then, he borrowed a low-grade divine artifact from Yu Xiongfei. When Yu Xiongfei took out Miracle, Yu Xiongfei's heart ached so much that his face trembled. He didn't want to borrow it. It was Yu Linglong who persuaded Yu Xiongfei to lend the item to Ning Shu. Ning Shu, on the other hand, was quite grateful to Yu Linglong. Ning Shu had a much better impression of Yu Linglong than Yu Liuli. Yu Liuli, at least, knew to return the favor. Yu Liuli, on the other hand, it was hard to explain. Ning Shu took the divine artifact, refined pills, and talisman paper and left a note for Jade Glaze. He said that the time of his tribulation was approaching and that he had gone deep into the mountains to undergo his tribulation. He might not be able to return in a short period of time and told Yu Liuli not to worry. After pressing the note under the kettle on the table, Ning Shu transformed into a peacock and flew away. Ning Shu was flying in the sky, looking for a secluded place to transcend the tribulation. This time, Ning Shu had made a risky move. If things went wrong, he might really die. Therefore, he had to be very careful. Ning Shu found a place. This mountain range was a land of death for humans. There was a lot of poisonous swamp gas, as well as some terrifying spirit beasts, and things that came in groups. Ning Shu found a cave. There was a gray bear sleeping in this cave, and Ning Shu directly threw it out. The gray bear, who was in a daze, fell to the ground with a thud. It immediately roared and rushed towards the cave entrance. But before it reached the cave entrance, it immediately turned and ran. Ning Shu released her divine beast pressure, and the grizzly bear immediately shriveled up and ran away in a panic. The world of spirit beasts was the law of the jungle. Whoever was strong was the reason. Ning Shu only occupied the gray bear's den and didn't kill it. The gray bear ran so fast because it was afraid that Ning Shu would kill it. Ning Shu covered his nose. This cave was really smelly. Bears really didn't like to be clean at all. Ning Shu cleaned up the cave and then stayed. Ning Shu began to set up the array around the cave with the divine artifact as the array core. She was going to transcend the tribulation here. Ning Shu was a little worried. He felt that the day of the tribulation was getting closer and closer. He could only continue to strengthen the array formation. Success or failure depended on this. In order to be able to break the contract, Ning Shu was really going all out. After that, Ning Shu smeared some herbal juice on his body. This grass was called thunder grass because when it was smeared on the body, it would be as painful as being struck by lightning. It was named thunder grass. However, this grass could strengthen the body and increase the body's tolerance. Ning Shu took the thunder grass every day and smeared it on his body. When this stuff was smeared on the body, it was a heart-wrenching pain. It was even more painful than smearing spicy on the body. As long as it was smeared, the body would feel as if it had been electrocuted. Every cell was moaning. It was very painful. However, it was obvious that the skin's tolerance was much higher and had become much tougher. If he jumped into the bone-chilling ice lake, he wouldn't feel cold at all. When the heavenly tribulation came, he would first have the array formation to withstand it. Then, even if it struck his body would be tougher and he might be able to withstand it for a while. Ning Shu smeared the thunder grass juice on his body every day. However, when he saw his own masculine features, Ning Shu felt as if his eyes were smeared with the thunder grass juice. It was so spicy that he couldn't open his eyes. His skin had become tough, but his internal organs were very fragile. Ning Shu looked at the thunder grass juice. After thinking for a while, he put a little in his mouth. Ning Shu couldn't feel his mouth anymore. It felt as if he had inserted a crackling electrical wire into his mouth. Ning Shu directly fainted. When he woke up, he moved his mouth and sighed. It seemed that he had to do it step by step. In addition to smearing the thunder grass on his body, Ning Shu also put it into his mouth. The thunder grass juice flowed down his throat. Ning Shu immediately covered his neck. Fuck, I can't speak. When it reached his stomach, Ning Shu felt that his stomach was about to explode. It was too fucking painful. Under Ning Shu's self-mutilation, his body was very tough. He used a dagger to cut his arm, leaving only a shallow white mark. She didn't endure so much pain in vain. Ning Shu could now calmly drink the thunder grass juice and then roll on the ground twice. It wasn't that painful anymore. Although it was still painful, it was within a tolerable range. The strange feeling in Ning Shu's heart became stronger and stronger. It should be the heavenly tribulation. Ning Shu stayed in the array formation. His fingers moved quickly and strengthened another layer of the array formation. Ning Shu's heart thumped. He was very nervous. The surroundings were very quiet. The heavenly tribulation was extremely terrifying for spirit beasts. If they weren't careful, their souls would scatter. The surrounding spirit beasts had all retreated. Now, there wasn't even the sound of birds chirping. The surroundings were extremely quiet and the atmosphere was very stifling. As the main character of the heavenly tribulation, Ning Shu's heart was about to jump out of his mouth. This was related to her mission. If she succeeded, she would be free to fly. If she failed, there would be 6 chain missions waiting for her. Chapter 1504. Ning Shu checked the things he had prepared to see if he had dropped anything. Pills, talismans, none of them were left behind. Ning Shu patted his chest. He would succeed. It had been a long time since he had felt such apprehension and anticipation for his future. A tribulation cloud gradually floated over from the horizon, bringing with it a power that made people tremble. Ning Shu felt as if he had been locked onto. The feeling was especially strong, as if the lightning tribulation wanted to destroy him. It gave people a lot of pressure. Ning Shu took a deep breath and watched as the troublesome little demon of the tribulation cloud approached. Finally, the black tribulation cloud stopped above Ning Shu. The cloud churned as if it was brewing its emotions. Suddenly, there was a loud boom as a silver-white lightning struck towards Ning Shu. Ning Shu hurriedly dodged the lightning tribulation. The lightning struck the ground, creating a small hole. Ning Shu looked and his eyebrows twitched. Another lightning bolt struck towards Ning Shu. Ning Shu hurriedly dodged. Not a single bolt hit Ning Shu. The tribulation cloud churned violently as it struck several dense lightning bolts. A lightning bolt landed on Ning Shu's body. Ning Shu immediately felt as if his body was being torn apart. Fortunately, his body's tolerance had increased greatly after being ravaged by the lightning grass. Although it was painful, his body had already gotten used to this kind of pain. Ning Shu's hair stood on end. The areas that were struck by lightning were badly mutilated. White smoke was coming out and there was also the smell of barbecued meat. The lightning bolts became more and more concentrated. Ning Shu was almost unable to withstand it. Ning Shu took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. Not long later, his mind started to turn blurry and his movements became slower. Ning Shu took out a talisman and chanted an incantation before pasting the talisman on his body. Ning Shu's soul immediately bounced out of Kong Lin's body. Without the protection of his body, Ning Shu's soul would be exposed. If a bolt of lightning struck his body, he would be finished. Ning Shu used his weak soul to resist the lightning tribulation. He chanted an incantation and concealed himself. His soul floated into the divine artifact that was the eye of the array. While Zhang Xian was inside the god artifact, the lightning tribulation outside was still continuing. It was as if the thunder tribulation felt that the person undergoing the tribulation was already dead. However, he still whipped the corpse with a series of crackling sounds. It was like poking with a tree branch to see if he was really dead. What if he was still alive? Ning Shu watched with trepidation, deeply afraid that his fragile body would not be able to withstand such lashing. Every time the lightning struck, the corpse would tremble. After another 2 strikes, the tribulation cloud seemed to have confirmed that he was really dead. The tribulation cloud slowly withdrew the lightning and slowly floated away. Ning Shu leaned on the divine artifact, not daring to come out immediately. After a long while, Ning Shu finally floated out of the divine artifact and returned to his body. As soon as he entered his body, Ning Shu cursed in his heart. Damn it, this is too painful. Ning Shu entered his body and fell into a deep sleep. Because of the effects of the fake death pill, he had to sleep for a while. Fortunately, he had set up an array before, so he would not be dragged away by other spirit beasts. Moreover, this place had experienced a heavenly tribulation. The power of heaven and earth would not dissipate for a while, so spirit beasts would not dare to come here. Ning Shu did not know how long he slept for. When he woke up, he felt much stronger. The wounds on his body had also healed. If he survived the heavenly tribulation, he would be in a new world. If he did not, his soul would scatter. After Ning Shu woke up, he immediately checked the small ball in his sea of consciousness. He did not know if the fake death pill worked. She should be considered dead now. Ning Shu looked at the small ball in his sea of consciousness. The small ball was still there. Ning Shu mobilized his mental power and soul power, surging towards the small ball. This time, the small ball did not push Ning Shu away. Ning Shu easily separated his soul from Jade Glazed Li's soul. After breaking the contract, Ning Shu felt that his heavy soul had been released. He was incomparably relaxed. She won. Her mission was a success. Ning Shu felt that there would be no mission more difficult than this in the future. Ning Shu gasped for breath. His heart was filled with joy. According to the rules of the heavenly Tao, she was already dead. She died from the heavenly tribulation, and her soul scattered. The rules of the contract were gone. It had been broken. The fake death pill was used to make the body lose all signs of life. The talisman was used to eject the soul from the body. The talisman was used to deal with malicious spirits. Ning Shu used it to eject his soul. After breaking the contract, Ning Shu felt that the world was too beautiful. Freedom was too precious. Ning Shu saw a strand of Jade Glazed Li's soul wandering around in Ning Shu's sea of consciousness. It was as if it could not find its master. Ning Shu looked at this strand of soul. A plan came to his mind. Since Jade Glazed Li could form a contract, she could too. Thanks to the library, Ning Shu also knew how to form a contract. Ning Shu merged his consciousness with Jade Glazed Li's soul. Then, they formed a master-servant contract. However, this time, Ning Shu was the master, and Jade Glazed Li was the servant. After forming the contract, the rice-sized ball was protected by the rules of the contract. This time, Ning Shu could easily enter the ball and break the contract. However, Ning Shu did not want to break it. Ning Shu took out the god equipment that was the eye of the array. This god equipment was a sword. It was a low-grade god equipment. It was just a god equipment. It could be considered a pseudo-godly equipment. However, it was still very precious. You saved my life. In return, Ning Shu bit his finger and drew a spirit-gathering array on the sword. The complicated circular spirit-gathering array was hidden in the sword. With the spirit-gathering array, one could gather the surrounding spiritual energy and nourish the god equipment at any time. Ning Shu put her sword back into the scabbard and took out 2 vitality pills. In order to make it look more realistic, she had endured a bolt of lightning. Now, her soul was very thin. When her soul was ejected from her body, Ning Shu was shocked by her own soul. Her soul was so strong in the past, but now, it was as thin as a ghost. For this mission, Ning Shu really gave it her all. Ning Shu went to the cave to rest. He would return when he was full of energy. At the same time, Jade Glazedly was preparing to bid for the vitality pills. Coincidentally, this vitality pill was auctioned by Yu Xiongfei. Sitting in the box, Jade Glazedly felt that she had lost contact with Kong Lin. Jade Glazedly immediately wondered if Kong Lin had failed his tribulation. Only when the contracted god beast died would the contract cease to exist. However, after a while, there was a faint connection. It seemed like Kong Lin had made it through. Jade Glazedly heaved a sigh of relief. If Kong Lin had really failed his tribulation, she would have one less helper. Now that Yin Tian's soul was very weak, if Kong Lin died, those people with bad intentions would attack her. Including that 5th prince and the Yu family. There were many people in the Yu family who were unhappy with her and hated her so much that they wanted to kill her. Seeing that Yin Tian wanted the vitality pills, Jade Glazedly hurriedly bid. In the end, Jade Glazedly won the vitality pills. The moment she got the vitality pills, Jade Glazedly ate them, hoping that they would be useful for Yin Tian. Chapter 1505. Ning Shu rested in the cave for a few days and then digested the benefits of the lightning tribulation. After the lightning tribulation, he felt much stronger. Ning Shu ate the vitality pills and cultivated his soul. This mission was a huge loss for him. In the past, he had done so many missions and absorbed so much soul power. Only then had his soul become so tough. He didn't expect to return to the time before he was liberated. But everything was worth it. He finally got rid of the contract. He got what he wanted. The most important thing was that after completing such a difficult mission, Ning Shu didn't believe that the next mission would be so difficult. After resting for a while, Ning Shu turned into a bird and flew back to the Yu family. After returning to the Yu family, Ning Shu felt very different. He was forced to be brought to a new place, and the feeling was completely different from visiting an old place. Ning Shu first returned the divine artifact to Yu Xiongfei. Seeing that Ning Shu was willing to return the divine artifact, Yu Xiongfei heaved a sigh of relief. If the other party insisted, he definitely couldn't keep the divine artifact. Yu Xiongfei put away the divine artifact. Ning Shu said, "The things you asked me to prepare are all prepared." Ning Shu nodded and refined some vitality pills. He also refined some pills for Yu Xiongfei. It was a win-win situation. After all, it wasn't easy to find these materials. Ning Shu returned to the courtyard. Yu Liuli wasn't at home. Where did she run off to? Ning Shu sat cross-legged on the bed and waited for Yu Liuli to return. Yu Linglong took advantage of the fact that Yu Liuli wasn't at home to bring some tonic soup for Ning Shu. Every time, she would personally bring it over. Ning Shu finished the tonic soup that Yu Linglong gave her in one gulp. This taste was really, "You don't have to bring it to me next time. You can cultivate by yourself," Ning Shu said to Yu Linglong. "I want to do something for Senior. It was the heaven-mending pill that Senior refined that repaired my dantian. I can't repay your kindness," Yu Linglong said respectfully. "No need. I made a deal with your grandfather. You don't have to thank me. This medicine doesn't taste good. I don't like it. Don't send me any more next time." Ning Shu refused. He had a bad feeling in his heart. "Yu Linglong, please don't be fooled by my face." Yu Linglong bowed. "If Senior doesn't like this type of tonic soup, then what do you like? I can make another one." Ning Shu was speechless. No need. I am a peacock, I do not drink human decoctions. Although your dantian has been repaired, it still needs to be nourished. Instead of worrying about making decoctions for me, you should focus on your own cultivation. Ning Shu waved his hand to dismiss Yu Linglong. Yu Linglong had a smile on her face. Thank you for your concern, senior. Linglong has never neglected her cultivation. I just took some time to make some medicine for senior. It's not a problem. Ning Shu was speechless. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. Could it be that Yu Linglong wanted to hit on him? Ning Shu put his fist in front of his mouth and coughed twice. He said, humans and demons have different paths. You, senior, what are you talking about? I just want to repay you. I have never thought of having any other relationship with a peacock. Yu Linglong had a look of astonishment on her face. Senior, you are really thinking the wrong way. Ning Shu was speechless. Your actions make it easy for others to think the wrong way. That's good. I thought you didn't like the Fifth Highness who rides on mantis shrimps. Ning Shu said awkwardly. Mantis shrimps? Oh, hee. You don't have to worry about anything now. Are you in the room whispering sweet nothings to each other? Yu Liuli leaned against the door frame and looked coldly at Ning Shu and Yu Linglong. Yu Liuli walked into the room and saw the tonic soup on the table. Yu Linglong, why did you come to my courtyard? Is it because you can't cultivate anymore? Are you so depraved that you have to sell your body to serve my divine beast? Yu Liuli's mouth was unusually vicious. Yu Linglong only said, little sister, you must be joking. Yu Liuli frowned and looked at Yu Linglong. Yu Linglong's complexion was very good. She didn't look like someone who couldn't cultivate at all. A person's body without any nourishment should be in great pain. How could Yu Linglong be fine? Moreover, there were fluctuations in her body. Although they weren't strong, there was still energy in her body. You can cultivate? Yu Liuli looked at Yu Linglong in shock. That's impossible. She had personally destroyed Yu Linglong's dantian. Yu Linglong couldn't cultivate. Yu Linglong had been hiding in her courtyard. She couldn't see Yu Linglong normally. Grandfather must have given Yu Linglong something that could repair her dantian. The more Yu Liuli thought about it, the angrier she became. They were both granddaughters. Why was there such a difference in treatment? When Yu Liuli was bullied, Yu Xiongfei never said a word of justice. But Yu Linglong couldn't cultivate, and he was still trying to repair her dantian. It was so unfair. Yu Linglong smiled when she saw Yu Liuli's angry face. She said proudly, thank you for your love, grandfather. My dantian is perfectly fine. Yu Liuli sneered. If I can destroy you once, I can destroy you a second time. I want to see how many divine pills can help you recover. Yu Linglong's expression didn't change. Ning Shu bowed. Senior, Linglong will make some nourishing soup for you next time. Yu Linglong didn't even look at Yu Liuli. She just turned and left. Ning Shu couldn't help but laugh. Yu Linglong, this girl, was trying to light the fire on her again. She ran away after nodding. But Yu Liuli saw that she was with Yu Linglong. She couldn't clear her name. Ning Shu drank a mouthful of water and rinsed his mouth. There was an inexplicable taste of nourishing medicine. Yu Liuli looked at Ning Shu. What are you doing with Yu Linglong behind my back? In any case, I'm not cheating on you, Ning Shu said as he drank his tea. Then do you know my relationship with Yu Liuli? I know. Then why are you so close to her? You have enmity with her, but I don't have any enmity with her. Can't she give me nourishing soup and I can't talk to her? Ning Shu said indifferently. What kind of attitude is this, Kong Lin? Do you think that I can't kill you just because you're a divine beast? Yulioli was really about to die from anger. In Yulioli's opinion, since he was her contracted beast, he should be on the same side as her. And not with such an ambiguous attitude toward her enemy. Ning Shu put down his teacup. Then kill me. Yulioli's head hurt. Yulioli decided to punish Ning Shu for being so lawless. Ning Shu sat steadily on the stool, his expression unchanged. What? What's going on? Yulioli looked at Ning Shu in shock. She pointed at Ning Shu. You. What's wrong with me? Ning Shu tilted his head and asked. Is it because I don't feel pain anymore? Yulioli's expression was angry and confused. She didn't understand what was going on. You. Yulioli pointed at Ning Shu and stammered, unable to say a word. Chapter 1506. Yulioli looked at Ning Shu in horror. She retreated toward the door. Yulioli couldn't figure out what had happened. Why didn't this peacock feel pain? This was her only way of punishing Kong Lin. If this method didn't work, what else could she do to control this peacock? Kong Lin, I'm your master. You can't go against your master, Yulioli shouted. Yulioli, who had always been fearless, straightened her neck and wore a proud expression even in the face of such a situation. Ning Shu slammed the teacup on the table. The tea spilled out. Yulioli's heart skipped a beat. The contract was still there. She could feel it. But why couldn't she command Kong Lin? Kneel down. Ning Shu shouted. Yulioli was so frightened that her body trembled. Yulioli was about to speak, but she couldn't control her body. With a thud, her knees hit the ground. Yulioli's face twitched in pain. Yulioli was confused. She didn't understand why she was kneeling in front of Kong Lin. Yulioli's face was full of humiliation. She would kneel to the heavens and the earth, but not to people. Yulioli got up. Kong Lin, what did you do to me? Ning Shu slowly poured tea. When did I tell you to get up? Kneel. Yulioli knelt on the ground again. Her body slammed against the floor. Yulioli was in so much pain that her face paled. Yulioli looked up at Ning Shu with hatred and humiliation. Ning Shu put down the teapot and looked at the kneeling Yulioli. In a master-servant contract, the stronger the master, the more control he had over the servant. Ning Shu's control over Yulioli was definitely greater than Yulioli's control over Ning Shu. Yulioli wanted to get up, but she found that her body wasn't under her control. Her expression changed. What did you do to me? She couldn't even control her own body. If she was told to kill herself, how terrifying would that be? Ning Shu ate a pastry. I did what you did to me. Kong Lin, do you want to betray master? Glazed Jade was truly a bit scared, but then her expression changed as she stared blankly at Ning Shu. You Glazed Jade looked at Ning Shu with incomparable horror. Nodding his head, Ning Shu smiled. Looks like you've guessed it. We do have a master-servant contract, but right now, I'm the master, and you're the servant. This is impossible. This is impossible. Glazed Jade's face was pale. I didn't break the contract. How could you have broken free from the contract? I don't believe it. Ning Shu grunted. We'll know once we try. Ah. Yulioli clutched her head and rolled around on the ground in pain. Her expression was hideous. It hurts, Ning Shu had said that if there was a chance, he would let Glazed Jade have a taste of having her soul torn apart. Ning Shu listened to Glazed Jade's cries as he drank his tea. It was as if he was enjoying the scenery. Glazed Jade was sweating profusely. She was in incomparable pain, but Glazed Jade was a stubborn person. She didn't beg Ning Shu for mercy. Gritting her teeth, she said, Kong Lin, we won't rest until one of us is dead. Sure, we won't rest until one of us is dead. In any case, I can kill you with a single thought. Ning Shu said calmly. Back then, I should have killed you back then. Glazed Jade regretted leaving this peacock behind. This peacock was still unwilling to accept it. Regret, Glazed Jade rolled around on the ground in pain. Finally, she cried out in pain, Yin Tian, save me. A wisp of smoke floated out of Yu Linglong's forehead. Yin Tian had come out. Yin Tian's soul was much more condensed than before. It seemed that Yu Linglong had done a lot for him during this period of time. Yin Tian saw that Glazed Jade's face was twisted in pain. He wanted to reach out to support Glazed Jade, but his hand passed through Glazed Jade's body. Yin Tian looked at Ning Shu. His eyebrows were slanted to his temples. He was extremely powerful. Remove the contract. Ning Shu shrugged. Do you think I'll remove it just because you say so? 1,000 years ago, no one dared to speak to me like this. Yin Tian said coldly. He looked down at Ning Shu. Ning Shu drank all the water in the teacup in one gulp. He put down the teacup and said, We're all people from 1,000 years ago. You're still causing trouble now. How boring. Who remembers your reputation from 1,000 years ago? Ning Shu didn't punish Glazed Jade anymore. She laid on the ground, extremely weak. Yin Tian hurriedly asked Glazed Jade, How are you? Glazed Jade said weakly, He reversed the contract. Yin Tian frowned. He had never heard of someone being able to reverse a contract. Glazed Jade was very weak now. With just a thought, Glazed Jade could vanish into thin air. Yin Tian still needed to rely on Glazed Jade. If anything happened to Glazed Jade, he would be in trouble too. No matter if it was for business or personal reasons, Yin Tian had to save Glazed Jade. Yin Tian looked at Ning Shu and asked in a low voice, What are the conditions for removing the contract? Ning Shu shrugged. I don't want anything. I don't want to remove the contract for now. You won't be able to give me what I want. Ning Shu had never thought of scheming anything from Glazed Jade. Glazed Jade didn't have anything she wanted. She had no desires for Glazed Jade. I can give you anything you want, including the cultivation method for spirit beasts and precious pill recipes. Yin Tian said with a heavy face. Ning Shu's face was indifferent. I don't need anything you said. I'll take back what Glazed Jade treated me in the past. With a single thought from Ning Shu, Glazed Jade immediately howled in pain. It was starting to hurt again. Glazed Jade hugged her head. The veins on her forehead were bulging. Glazed Jade slammed her head on the ground as if this was the only way to ease the pain of her soul being torn apart. Yin Tian quickly used his hand to block Glazed Jade's forehead. However, Yin Tian didn't have a physical body. Glazed Jade's head passed through his hand and fell to the ground. Soon, Glazed Jade's head was a bloody mess. The floor was covered in blood. Yin Tian was incomparably anxious as he watched and hurriedly froze the jade glaze. However, after using his power, Yin Tian's soul became a little more transparent. Glazed Jade was in extreme pain. She was in so much pain that she didn't even have the energy to cry out. She only groaned softly. Her eyes were starting to lose focus. Ning Shu removed the punishment. Glazed Jade's body fell to the ground as if she was dead. Yin Tian checked Glazed Jade's body. He turned to Ning Shu and said darkly, You're really vicious. What's the point of torturing people like this? Ning Shu nodded. It's quite interesting. No wonder Glazed Jade always liked to punish me. It feels good to see others in pain. Similarly, Yuli wasn't wrong. She was vicious. Alright, she was that vicious. She would rather be a vicious person. Chapter 1507. Yulioli's face was ashen as she laid on the ground. Even her lips had lost their color. If it wasn't for her aura, Yulioli would have died. Yin Tian injected some energy into Yulioli's body, causing Yin Tian's soul to become even more transparent. It seemed like Yin Tian had used up all the energy that he had painstakingly accumulated. Yin Tian's soul was about to be blown away by the wind. However, all his attention was on Yulioli. Ning Shu, she looked like a bad person now. Yin Tian and Ning Shu asked, "How did you reverse the contract?" Ning Shu shrugged, "After a nap, I became the master and Yulioli became the servant. I told you how to break the contract and you did it. How dare you?" Yin Tian roared in anger. A suffocating pressure surged towards Ning Shu. Ning Shu sneered. He was just a braggart who was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Now his soul was so weak. "Why? Do you want to fight me? Even if I die, I will drag Yulioli down with me. She will die with just a thought." Ning Shu was calm. He wasn't frightened by Yin Tian's pressure at all. Yin Tian was conflicted. Such pain and helplessness. This was what it felt like to be a servant. "You are so vicious. You call me vicious again? I am just exercising my rights as the master. Just like what Yulioli did to me. Since she didn't tame me, I can do anything to her now that I have devoured her." Ning Shu conjured a seal and struck it towards Yin Tian. Yin Tian looked at the seal nervously. It was the natural enemy of the soul. After Yin Tian broke the talisman, Ning Shu calmly formed another seal and formed another talisman. "Let's see how many you can destroy." Yin Tian held on bitterly. He couldn't abandon Yulioli. However, every time he used his power, his soul dimmed a little. Ning Shu sat on the stool and conjured seals casually. Numerous seals surrounded Yin Tian's body. Yin Tian's soul became even dimmer. Not only did he have to destroy these talismans, but the talismans would also consume Yin Tian's energy. Yin Tian really had no other choice. If this continued, he would really dissipate. Yin Tian had no choice but to enter Yulioli's glabella. Ning Shu rolled his eyes. Did he really think that he could scare people by acting cool? Yulioli opened her blurry eyes and looked at Ning Shu with some fear. However, her stubborn personality prevented her from begging for mercy. A soldier would rather be killed than humiliated. Ning Shu and Yulioli walked over. Yulioli wanted to move her body, but she was too weak. She didn't even have the strength to move. Ning Shu took out a pill and stuffed it into Yulioli's mouth. Yulioli coughed, wanting to vomit out the pill. She looked at Ning Shu in horror. What did you feed me?" "The vitality pill. I know the pain of the soul being torn apart, so I'm giving you some relief," Ning Shu said. Yulioli looked at Ning Shu as if he was crazy. "What are you trying to do?" Yulioli felt a cooling sensation enter her soul. It was the vitality pill. "Don't even think about taking advantage of me. So what if I'm a servant?" Yulioli used her elbow to support herself as she retreated. "Ning Shu, huh? Did Yulioli think that I'm going to torture her?" Ning Shu waved his hand. "I'm just afraid that your soul will dissipate." Yulioli's expression became even stranger. "I won't give in." "Ning Shu, what does it have to do with me?" Ning Shu probably felt that it was meaningless for Yulioli to die like this. She had struggled for so long, and Yulioli tortured her and herself. Her soul was so strong in the past, but now it had become like this. Ning Shu felt a chill in his heart. He also needed to rest and prepare for the next mission. Ning Shu looked at Yulioli with a smile. "You may leave." Yulioli's face was tense, as if she had been greatly humiliated. Yulioli still hadn't recovered from her shock. How did she become a servant? Her life was in the hands of Kong Lin. In the hands of Kong Lin, who she looked down on. Ning Shu reached out and patted Yu Liuli's shoulder. Yu Liuli's body spasmed. She was clearly frightened by Ning Shu. Ning Shu smiled and said, "Don't be afraid. Go out now." Yu Liuli supported herself against the wall and stood up with difficulty. Then she walked out of the room. "Close the door," Ning Shu said. Yu Liuli's back paused, but she didn't move. Ning Shu said again, "Close the door. Kong Lin, don't think that you can imprison me like this." Yu Liuli clenched her fists. Ning Shu nodded and said, "I know you're very strong, okay? Kong Lin, what are you trying to do?" Yu Liuli heard Ning Shu's coaxing tone and felt goosebumps all over her body. This kind of Kong Lin made her feel that he was neither superior nor inferior. "You're being disobedient again. What can I do to you? You're just my slave. Why would I care about you?" Ning Shu said casually. Yu Liuli's face turned red, then white, then red again. This kind of attitude was too insulting. "Close the door. I've already said this 3 times. I'm getting impatient." Ning Shu looked at Yu Liuli. Yu Liuli's head suddenly hurt. She endured the humiliation and reached out to close the door. Ning Shu took out a vitality pill and ate it. The vitality pill had very little effect on her now. Eating more wouldn't have any effect. Moreover, it would accumulate pill toxins in her body. Ning Shu still had to think of a way to get rid of the pill toxins in her body. Ning Shu controlled the fiery sun power in her body and let it flow through her meridians, burning away the pill toxins in her meridians. However, it would take some time to get rid of the pill toxins. Ning Shu stayed in the Yu family. After a while, she would go out and see if she could find the world's origin. Now that she found 2 worlds' origin, she only needed to find 3 more to build a world. During this time in the Yu family, Yu Linglong delivered nourishing soup to Ning Shu every day. Ning Shu looked at the nourishing soup on the table and felt helpless. "I've said it before. You don't have to deliver nourishing soup." Yu Linglong said, "It's your business whether you drink it or not. It's Linglong's business whether I deliver it or not." Ning Shu was speechless. He really wondered if this girl had fallen in love with him. Yu Linglong scooped a bowl of nourishing soup and placed it in front of Ning Shu. "Senior, please drink." Ning Shu said, "I can't drink anymore. If I drink anymore, I'll be so fat that I can't fly. You don't have to send me anymore." "Really? You're making me very troubled. If you really want to repay me, don't send me soup. I don't like to drink soup." "Then what do you like? I'll send you something you like next time." Yu Linglong asked. Ning Shu was speechless. "I like to drink fruit juice. Send me fruit juice next time." Ning Shu said helplessly. He didn't know what this girl was thinking. Chapter 1508. Ning Shu really didn't want to drink soup so early in the morning. Sending soup every day, it didn't seem like he was interested in her. Was it purely to repay her kindness? Yu Linglong nodded. Linglong will remember. Senior likes to drink fruit juice. Then what kind of fruit juice does Senior like? Yu Linglong asked again. Ning Shu was speechless. As long as it's fruit juice. Okay. A lady from a respectable family had become a waitress in a restaurant. Yu Linglong wanted to say something but stopped. Ning Shu poured the soup from the bowl into the cup, closed the lid, and said, "Speak. What do you want to say?" Yu Linglong hesitated for a moment and asked, "Has Senior broken the contract with Sixth Sister?" Ning Shu raised his eyebrows. "Why do you think so?" Ning Shu remembered that she didn't tell anyone other than Yu Liuli. In the Yu family, no one other than Yu Liuli should know. How did Yu Linglong, this little girl, know? I met Sixth Sister at the door just now. She clearly hates me, but she didn't act like she usually does. Clearly, she has some scruples. Yu Linglong guessed. Just based on this? I came to find Senior. According to Sixth Sister's temper, she would definitely come to make trouble. But Linglong has talked to Senior for so long, and Sixth Sister didn't do anything. Yu Liuli was the kind of person who would take revenge on the spot. But her enemy came to her territory and even talked to her enemy with a contracted divine beast. She was so arrogant. Yu Liuli didn't do anything. This was not in line with Yu Liuli's character. Your analysis is pretty good, little girl. With Ning Shu's age, it was reasonable for him to call the 16-year-old Yu Linglong a little girl. So Senior really broke the contract with Sixth Sister. Yu Linglong was very surprised. How did Senior do it? Ning Shu thought for a moment and understood what Yu Linglong was thinking. I said that she would send me soup every day. Firstly, it was to test Yu Liuli. Secondly, it was to let me remember her good points. Yu Linglong had some guesses and tested him for a while. Ning Shu poured himself a cup of tea and sipped it slowly. In the end, Yu Linglong wanted to form a contract with him. Ning Shu looked at Yu Linglong. Yu Linglong was a little embarrassed by Ning Shu's gaze. Little girl, don't play tricks in front of people who are much stronger than you. You will appear very unlikable, Ning Shu said as he put down his teacup. Yu Linglong's expression changed. She bowed and said, Linglong thanks Senior for your guidance. Everyone yearned for power, and it was normal for Yu Linglong to be like this. However, Ning Shu wouldn't form a contract with anyone. It wasn't easy to get rid of the contract, so he definitely wouldn't jump into the fire pit again. Cultivate well, Ning Shu said. Yu Linglong bowed and saluted. Then, she left with the nourishing soup. At the entrance of the courtyard, he met the pale-faced Yu Liuli. Yu Linglong snorted from her nose, as if she was mockingly moo. Humph. Yu Liuli stopped Yu Linglong. What did you mean just now? Nothing. I just looked down on you. You think you are very powerful, but even your contracted divine beast has abandoned you. You are really annoying, Yu Linglong said in a dignified manner. What do you mean? Yu Liuli was so angry that her face turned green. What did Kong Lin tell you? Yu Liuli felt that her dignity was being trampled on. Senior didn't say anything. I guess that you have already broken the contract, Yu Linglong said with a smile. People like you should have nothing. Even if you don't respect Senior as a person, you should respect strength. Whether it is the cowardly you in the past or the arrogant you now, I hate you very much, Yu Linglong said directly. She was probably in a bad mood after being rejected by Ning Shu, so she spoke of her dissatisfaction and disgust towards Yu Liuli. Yu Liuli had never been spoken to like this before. She said coldly, Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like this? I am still contracted with Kong Lin. In any case, it is definitely not a master-servant relationship. Yu Linglong shrugged and left with the tonic soup. Yu Linglong's disdainful attitude made Yu Liuli explode in anger. She blurted out, Of course it is a master-servant contract. Yu Linglong turned around with a look of realization. So Senior reversed the contract. Yu Liuli was instantly annoyed. You tricked me. You said it yourself. TSK. Yu Liuli turned around and pushed open Ning Shu's door. Ning Shu silently looked at Yu Liuli who rushed in. What are you doing? Don't you know how to knock? Kong Lin, since you are so close with Yu Linglong and want to form a contract with her, then break the contract with me and form a contract with Yu Linglong. What are you barking for? Ning Shu closed the map. She was looking at the mountain terrain of this world. Barking? She wasn't a dog. Yu Liuli felt that she had suffered the greatest humiliation in her life today. Yu Liuli took a deep breath. It seems like you like my second sister more. Since you two are birds of a feather, then you should form a contract with her. Ning Shu kept the map and asked indifferently, are you done? Ning Shu's thoughts moved. Yuli immediately hugged her head and wailed in pain. In just a short while, Yuli's clothes were already drenched in sweat. Ning Shu was at the side organizing her things. She was prepared to flap her wings and travel around in search of the world's origin. After completing one more mission, she would become a super mission enforcer. However, there was still a long way to go before she could construct a world. She had no idea where to find the origin of a world. She had no idea what form the origin of a world existed in. Ning Shu turned a deaf ear to Yuli's wails. She checked how many vitality pills she had left. And, not many. She might as well give them to Yu Xiongfei. She didn't need them now. Oh, right. Yuli, who was lying on the ground, might need them. Yuli was in so much pain that the veins on her forehead were popping. This pain was even more painful than giving birth. Yuli's breathing was weak. Ning Shu begged for mercy. I was wrong. Ning Shu didn't hear anything. She continued to busy herself with the things on hand. Yuli's face was filled with humiliation and pain. Her face was contorted. She mustered her courage and begged for mercy. In the end, Ning Shu didn't even care. I was wrong. Yuli shouted. Even her pupils were starting to dilate. She was probably at her limit. Ning Shu snapped his fingers and removed the punishment. Yuli laid on the ground like a fish on the verge of death. She was panting heavily. Ning Shu was puzzled. Why didn't Yin Tian come out to fight for justice for Yuli? He was probably injured previously and was still in a deep sleep. Now, the two of them couldn't even take care of themselves. The two of them hadn't matured yet. If they did, they wouldn't allow Ning Shu to do whatever he wanted. Ning Shu decided that before he left this world, he would definitely deal with Yuli. Chapter 1509. Yuli laid on the ground and looked at Ning Shu, who was sitting on the stool. Kong Lin, you. Arrogant. Yuli had never seen such a bad person. He controlled her and punished her as he pleased, treating her like a slave. She had always wanted to treat him as a partner, but all she got was such a heartless treatment. Yuli felt betrayed. Yuli wanted to know how Ning Shu broke free from the contract and even reversed it. Kong Lin, are we going to be at each other's throats forever? Can't we have a good talk? Yuli said weakly as she struggled to get up. Ning Shu only said, what right do you have to talk to me? What do you want to talk to me about? We can work together. Yuli wiped the cold sweat off her face as she negotiated with Ning Shu. What is there to talk about? You are my servant, everything you have is mine. If I want you to live, you live. If I want you to die, you die. What right do you have to talk to me about conditions? What do you have on you that you can talk to me about? Ning Shu looked at Yuli. Yuli pursed her lips. Thinking about it, she really couldn't think of anything to trade with Ning Shu. So, don't make a fuss in front of me in the future. I find it annoying. Your cold eyes can't scare me, Ning Shu said calmly. What cold eyes could scare someone to death? That was nonsense. What arrogance and coldness. That was even more nonsense. What was he pretending for? Yuli was in a sorry state. Especially when she saw Ning Shu's expression, she felt even more annoyed. He looked at her as if he was looking at an ant. He didn't care about her at all. It was as if she was something that he could do without. Yuli felt that she was someone that others couldn't ignore. She was a very special person. If Ning Shu tortured her, angered her, and hated her, Yuli wouldn't feel so embarrassed. At least hating her was paying attention to her. Ning Shu said to Yulioli, call Yin Tian out. What do you want to do? Yulioli looked at Ning Shu warily. I told you to call her out, so do it. Yulioli was afraid that Ning Shu would punish her again, so she could only say, Yin Tian has fallen into a deep sleep, I can't wake him up. Ning Shu narrowed his eyes as he looked at glazed jade. He might as well kill her now. There was no guarantee that nothing would happen in the future. If she could break free from the contract, then perhaps the other protagonists of Fortune rivaling Heaven could also break free from the contract. Especially now that glazed jade and Yin Tian shared the same identity, their luck was concentrated in one body. Who knew if an accident would happen and the contract between her and Jade Glaze would be broken? God knows what will happen. Ning Shu hardened his heart and wanted to kill the jade-glazed glass. He couldn't leave the jade-glazed glass to the person who entrusted it. Right now, she and Yulioli were already at an impasse. If Yulioli really managed to break free, she would immediately seek revenge. Yulioli's heart jumped as she stuttered, what do you want to do? Ning Shu said, I think you should call Yin Tian out. I have something to discuss with him. Why did you call Yin Tian out? Yulioli looked at Ning Shu with even more vigilance. Let me tell you, this is between you and me. It has nothing to do with Yin Tian. Ning Shu was a bit impatient. He snapped his fingers and Yulioli immediately covered her head and cried out in pain. She didn't listen to him when he was talking nicely. Yin Tian, save me, save me. Yulioli was in so much pain that she wanted to die. She could only call Yin Tian out. Yin Tian's thin soul floated out of Yulioli's forehead. Yin Tian saw Yulioli and immediately asked, how are you? Although you're a divine beast, you can't bully people like this. Every time I come out, I see you bullying people. Yin Tian stood in front of Yulioli. Ning Shu said, I didn't go through the heavens tribulation to lower myself in front of Yulioli. As Ning Shu spoke, he formed seals with both hands. His fingers moved quickly and left afterimages. Yin Tian's expression was serious. He used his own strength to resist Ning Shu's talisman. Ning Shu's talisman was very complicated. After forming the talisman, it was very powerful. Ning Shu's forehead was sweating. Ning Shu pointed his finger and the talisman flew towards Yin Tian. Yin Tian dodged the talisman. As the power was released, Yin Tian's soul became dimmer and dimmer. It was so transparent that it was about to disappear. Once the talisman touched his body, his soul became dimmer. With a thought, Ning Shu killed Yulioli. Once Yulioli died, Yin Tian would have no place to rest. Yulioli looked at Yin Tian worriedly. Suddenly, a huge force pressed down on her soul. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on her. In an instant, Yulioli's soul was crushed into pieces. Her soul collapsed. Yulioli's eyes became lifeless and she fell to the ground. What did you do to her? Yin Tian's expression changed. Ning Shu formed seals with both hands and forced Yulioli's soul out. Yulioli was dead, but he couldn't guarantee that she wouldn't transmigrate again. The talisman forced out a trace of Yulioli's remnant soul that couldn't be any thinner. Ning Shu then formed another talisman. This talisman was able to scatter Yulioli's soul. Ning Shu was really afraid that something would happen and Yulioli would come back to life. The so-called main character's aura was an extremely long HP bar that would cause the villain to collapse. Other characters' HP bars would be emptied several times, but the main character would still be able to stand and welcome the curtain call. Yulioli's soul didn't have any intention of its own. Even when she saw the talisman, she didn't know how to dodge. She was ignorant. Yin Tian stood in front of Yulioli and blocked the talisman for her. Yin Tian's soul became even thinner. His entire body was filled with killing intent. You really want to kill her? At least you and Lioli have a master and servant relationship. How can you be so heartless? If you didn't have a master and servant relationship with me, I wouldn't want to kill her so much. Ning Shu's speed of forming seals became faster and faster. The talisman formed not only shone with a golden light, it also had the burning power of the sun. The talisman turned into light and entered Yu Liuli and Yin Tian's soul. With a ping sound, Yu Liuli and Yin Tian's soul turned into fragments and disappeared. Ning Shu let out a long breath and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He felt that his connection with Yu Liuli was completely broken. If Yu Liuli died, the contract between her and Yu Liuli would no longer exist. "Senior, what happened inside?" Yu Xiongfei's voice sounded from outside the room. Ning Shu said, "Nothing, come in and clean up." Yu Xiongfei came in and saw Yu Liuli lying on the ground. Her eyes were wide open and her pupils were dilated. She was clearly dead. "Senior, this." Yu Xiongfei and Ning Shu asked carefully. Ning Shu said, "I killed Yu Liuli. I will give you an explanation for this. Senior is too polite." Yu Xiongfei asked the servant to carry the corpse away. Then Ning Shu cupped his hands and left/BK. Chapter 15:10. Ning Shu wasn't afraid that the Yu clan would find trouble with him, because Yu Xiongfei had wanted Yu Liuli's life before. Killing Yu Liuli now was a good thing for Yu Xiongfei. Yu Liuli was actually a ticking time bomb. She had a grudge against the Yu clan, and as she grew stronger, the Yu clan would be in more danger. Therefore, Yu Xiongfei definitely wouldn't find trouble with her. Moreover, with her strength, Yu Xiongfei would have to think twice before taking revenge. Yu Liuli's corpse was buried by Yu Xiongfei. Before burying it, he even stayed at home for a few days. Ning Shu saw that Yu Liuli's corpse had livor mortis and a rotten smell. After confirming that no one had transmigrated or reincarnated into this body, he let Yu Xiongfei bury the corpse. Ning Shu said to Yu Xiongfei, "I'm leaving the Yu clan. If there's any pill you need me to refine, I'll refine it for you. I might not return in the future." "Thank you, senior." Yu Xiongfei hurriedly cupped his hands. Ning Shu glanced at the divine weapon hanging on the wall. There was a spirit gathering array that gathered the surrounding spirit chi to nourish the sword. As long as there was spirit chi, extraordinary things could be nurtured. Just like how the spirit marrow crystal could nurture existences like kelp. However, it only had great strength, but no brains. Yu Xiongfei found the materials he needed to refine the elixir. Ning Shu helped Yu Xiongfei refine the elixir and then turned into a dark green bird, intending to leave. "Senior." Yu Liuli lifted her skirt and panted as she raised her head and shouted at Ning Shu, who was flying in the air. Ning Shu flapped his wings and flew down. He stopped on a tree branch and lowered his head to ask Yu Liuli, "What's the matter? Will senior come back?" Ning Shu asked Yu Liuli. Ning Shu couldn't control his instincts. He used his sharp beak to comb his feathers and said, "I don't know. Maybe I'll come back, maybe I won't. Then Linglong will wait for senior to come back." Yu Liuli raised her head and said. The sun shone on her face as she looked up at the birds in the trees. Ning Shu said directly, "Don't wait for me. I may never come back. Just live your own life." Ning Shu flapped his wings and flew away. Yu Linglong looked disappointed as she stared blankly at Ning Shu flying into the distance. Ning Shu decided to go to all the places in this world where natural treasures could easily grow. After leaving the city, Ning Shu transformed into his human form. Sometimes, he would ask around and listen to gossip. She would not be able to find it if she searched blindly. Perhaps the world's origin was hidden in someone's home. Because even ghosts didn't know what the world's origin looked like. However, the world origin contained great power. For example, the wood elemental world origin had powerful wood elemental energy. In places without sunlight and water, plants could still grow. The fire element continued to burn, as if it would never stop. How did the metal element, earth element, and water element exist? Could the water attribute be in the water? Who knows? Ning Shu went to many places and encountered many natural treasures. However, Ning Shu was too lazy to pick them. Let these natural treasures continue to grow. The longer they grew, the more precious they would be. There was no point in picking them now. Other than the world origin, Ning Shu didn't care about these things. To Ning Shu, they were useless. Building a world was Ning Shu's most urgent task right now. Everything else had to wait. No, the most important thing right now was to complete the 3 chain quests and enter a space where one could comprehend the laws. Ning Shu said, "Every time I go to a place, carefully check if there is a world origin." 2333 said, "This is a chain quest. As long as you complete it, you will leave the world. Now that you are leaving the world, do you want to stay or do you want to complete the next quest? Let's wait. There is no point in waiting because you will be forcefully sent out of the world." 2333 said directly. The chain quest didn't give you time to find good things. Now you will be forcefully sent out of the world. Ning Shu was depressed. He paid such a huge price in this world, but there was no world origin. Where is the justice? Ning Shu's head was dizzy. Then, without any hesitation, he was stuffed into another container. Ning Shu, this is really, probably because his soul was severely damaged in the last world. Ning Shu hadn't felt this uncomfortable in a long time. His stomach was churning. He really wanted to vomit. After a while, he recovered. Ning Shu rubbed his swollen head and looked at where he was. This was a very simple room. There was a bed that wasn't wide. Clothes were draped on a rope. The walls were made of mud. There were a few red-crowned cranes made of cheap colored paper on the wall. There was also an old celebrity poster. However, the celebrity on the poster was quite good-looking. Ning Shu looked down. The floor was made of mud. There wasn't even a concrete floor. It seemed that the client's family wasn't well off. Ning Shu leaned on the bed. He was dizzy and hungry. His eyes were so swollen that he couldn't open them. It was as if there was sand in his eyes. His eyeballs were rubbed so hard that it hurt when he rolled his eyes. Ning Shu felt weak all over. He moved his neck. His neck made cracking sounds. His body was too uncomfortable. Ning Shu first sat cross-legged on the bed to cultivate. His body was too fucking uncomfortable. What made Ning Shu more embarrassed was that his private part hurt. This made Ning Shu feel a little uncomfortable. Ning Shu took a deep breath and began to cultivate. There was little spiritual energy in the modern world. Ning Shu absorbed the power of the sun. His body slowly relaxed. Ning Shu began to accept the plot. The client's name was Wang Ying. She was less than 18 years old. She was a village girl. Wang Ying was the eldest in the family. She had a younger brother called Wang Chao. For a village girl like Wang Ying, it was good enough that she could graduate from middle school. Wang Ying's grades were not bad. She would definitely be admitted to a key high school. However, her parents didn't let her continue to study because they were poor and didn't have money for her. The money was left for her younger brother to study. In the future, it would be left for her younger brother to marry a wife. Wang Ying, who couldn't study, naturally earned money for the family until she got married. The poorer the place, the more so. Girls would work after graduating from middle school. It was more because of family reasons. Wang Ying found a job in a small town. She was a salesperson in a small supermarket. She earned 1,000 yuan a month. Wang Ying's mother was very satisfied. At least she could earn 1,000 yuan a month. Wang Ying went to work in the small supermarket. But in this supermarket, Wang Ying's fate was changed. Wang Ying was raped. Raped by a 37-year-old bachelor. She was in the small warehouse of the small supermarket. The man closed the door and raped in a small room. Wang Ying couldn't break free no matter how hard she struggled. The man succeeded. In this backward and ignorant village, a woman being raped was a very sensational thing. Wang Ying was treated as a joke by all the gossipy women in the village. /BK. Chapter 1511. Wang Ying became the topic of discussion in the village. Her family also felt that Wang Ying was an embarrassment. When others laughed at them, they came back to poke at Wang Ying's heart. They said that Wang Ying was so embarrassing. Why didn't she just die? She was an embarrassment. Ever since the incident, Wang Ying had been hiding at home, not daring to see anyone. In the end, she secretly drank a bottle of pesticide. Fortunately, it was discovered early and she was sent to the hospital for repeated gastric lavage. However, the gastric lavage hurt her stomach and Wang Ying was left with serious gastric problems. However, she was told that she was pregnant. And that she was pregnant. Since she was pregnant, the rapist came and said that he was willing to marry Wang Ying. Moreover, he talked about marriage in a condescending manner. Wang Ying's parents felt that Wang Ying was an embarrassment. Now, someone was willing to marry their daughter, even though he was the one who raped her. However, now that they both had a child, marriage was the best choice. Wang Ying was unwilling. Everyone around advised Wang Ying that Wang Ying was a woman who was taken by a man. It was good enough that a man wanted her. Wang Ying married the rapist. She got married at the age of 18. Her family felt that she was an embarrassment. In addition, they couldn't bear to give Wang Ying a dowry. Not to mention a color TV, they didn't even have a box. As for the money that Wang Ying earned, she handed it over to her mother without missing a single cent. This money was left for her brother, Wang Chao. The rapist basically didn't spend any money to marry Wang Ying. He didn't feel ashamed that he was a rapist at all. Instead, he was proud that he had picked up a virgin daughter and a son for free. He was obviously a rapist, but he was so arrogant. As the victim, Wang Ying was condemned and hurt by the rumors around her. At the end of the day, it was feudal thinking that oppressed women. Ignorant feudalism. The funniest thing was that the rapist said that Wang Ying seduced him. Wang Ying married over and had no status at home. Her mother-in-law attacked her, saying that she wasn't a good woman. If she was a good woman, how could she seduce someone like that? If she was a good woman, she shouldn't have gone to work so late and purposely given men a chance. In short, you're not a good woman. Marrying you is really a bad luck of 8 lifetimes. She had completely forgotten that her son was a rapist and that her son was the instigator and the cause of all these things. Her mother-in-law was usually very strict with Wang Ying and did not allow her to talk to other men. He said that with Wang Ying's flirtatious personality, she would definitely seduce other men and make his son a cuckold. These comments were an eye-opener for Ning Shu. If it wasn't for the gender, Ning Shu would have thought that these words were said by a man with terminal chauvinism. Aren't you wearing so little just to let me touch you? A good woman would not come out to eat supper at night. She deserved to be raped. It's all the woman's fault. Who asked you to seduce me? Wang Ying's married life was miserable. With the title of being the wife, everyone looked down on her. Men looked at her with strange eyes. Women attacked her and laughed at her. Even the son she gave birth to was not close to Wang Ying, because playmates of the same age as the son would laugh at him and say that his mother was a pervert. Her mother-in-law never let her son get close to Wang Ying. Her son slept with her mother-in-law. Wang Ying's son did not like his mother. Instead, he hated Wang Ying very much and felt ashamed to have such a mother. No one stood on Wang Ying's side. It was not good to be a cow or a horse. The rapist hit and scolded Wang Ying. The family had to do everything. It was hard to imagine that this was a modern world, and it was still so ignorant and feudal. No matter where it was, the discrimination and oppression of women never disappeared. These thoughts were deeply rooted and would not disappear with the passage of time. Wang Ying was very haggard. The physical and psychological pressure was too much for Wang Ying to bear. She drank another large bottle of pesticide. Wang Ying was worried that she would not die, so she drank 2 bottles. This time, she died as she wished. But Wang Ying's death did not cause the slightest ripple. Wang Ying's life was like a nightmare. She had to bear all the rumors and slanders. It was obvious that her husband was the most abominable person. Ning Shu sighed. He felt that Wang Ying's personality was weak. If it was Ning Shu, he would have just mixed the pesticide in the rice and everyone would die together. Even if he had to die, he would drag one of them down with him. Her husband was the main culprit. Wang Ying was very resentful after her death, but the mission did not have any specific requirements. Wang Ying could not let go of the resentment in her heart. Wang Ying's heart was filled with hatred. He wished he could burn down the entire village and sew up those vicious mouths. According to the plot, it should be a horror movie. After Wang Ying died, she turned into a malicious spirit and killed the whole village. But in the end, Wang Ying did not become a malicious spirit. Wang Ying's heart was timid. In this place, where boys were highly valued, Wang Ying's value at home was almost negligible. She had to do everything at home, wash clothes, cook, cut pigweed, carry wheat, and do all the farm work. Her younger brother did not have to do anything because he could carry on the family line and support his parents in the future. Raising children was to prevent old age and hunger. After joining the workforce, Wang Ying gave all her salary to her mother. Wang Ying's method was just to raise her status in the family. Although she did not think so, she subconsciously wanted to please her parents. Wang Ying was assimilated by the environment she lived in. Ning Shu was speechless. Wang Ying didn't even have a wish. It seemed that this body had already been taken care of. Last night, Wang Ying was counting goods in the small warehouse and was locked in a small room by Li Bing. Wang Ying came back and cried the whole night. She felt that the sky had collapsed. Ning Shu stopped cultivating because Wang Ying was pregnant this time. Ning Shu did not want to get pregnant. Ning Shu rubbed his stomach and felt a faint heat flowing out from his lower abdomen and staining his underwear. Ning Shu quickly took out his underwear from a pile of tattered clothes on the rope and changed into it. There was still some white stains on the underwear, and some of the white stains had already dried. Ning Shu found a plastic bag and put the underwear away. Because Li Bing's DNA was on it, this was the key to convicting him. Ning Shu rubbed an acupuncture point on his abdomen to prevent pregnancy. No, he still had to buy contraceptives. It had been less than 24 hours since last night, so it should be useful. Besides, there was no point in giving birth to such a child. It would just be another debt collector. Ning Shu opened the door and rushed to the kitchen. He opened the lid and saw a few steamed buns and an egg. This egg was for his younger brother, Wang Chao. The eggs that the chickens at home laid were all for his younger brother. Ning Shu grabbed a steamed bun and stuffed it into his mouth. He took the egg with him. Ning Shu felt that his heart was hurt and needed to be nourished. Ning Shu scooped a bowl of cold water and ate it with the steamed bun. Chapter 15:12. After eating the steamed bun, Ning Shu was peeling the eggshell. Wang Ying's mother rushed in and raised her hand to slap Ning Shu's head. Ning Shu dodged in a flash and stuffed the peeled egg into her mouth. It was delicious. Damn woman, this is for your brother. Wang Ying's mother reached out to hit Ning Shu again. Ning Shu stuffed the remaining egg into her mouth, took the bowl and ran out of the kitchen to drink cold water. The egg yolk was really choking. You're going against the heavens, this is for your brother. Wang Ying's mother was so angry that she was panting and scolding Ning Shu. Rural women's scolding was very unpleasant to the ears. They could even scold 18 generations of ancestors. Wang Ying's mother was a real rural woman. She faced the yellow soil and the sky every day. Her face was dark and yellow, which made her look very tough. Ning Shu interrupted Wang Ying's mother's scolding and said, "Mom, give me some money." She was going to buy contraceptive pills and report the case. "I'm going to marry a rapist. Hee, I'm going to kick his balls." When it came to money, it was as if Wang Ying's mother's Achilles heel was poked. She almost jumped up. "What do you want money for? It happened last night." Until now, the Wang family still didn't know that Wang Ying was raped. "Don't worry about it. Give me money." Ning Shu spread her hands. She didn't have any money on her. She gave all her salary to her mother. After working for nearly 2 years, Wang Ying gave all her salary to Wang Ying's mother. Wang Ying's mother was a person who only took in and didn't take out. It wasn't that she only took in and didn't take out, but it depended on the client. Her son was very willing to spend money. Wang Chao wanted sneakers, so he bought them for him. The client had a shirt that was very old. Wang Ying's mother said that it could be worn again. Her son was growing and needed to buy clothes at any time. In short, she was very patriarchal. "I don't have any money. What time is it now? You should go to the supermarket to work." Wang Ying's mother changed the topic. Ning Shu was too lazy to say anything to her. He ran straight to the bedroom, opened the bedside table, and took out the money. Wang Ying's mother hurried into the house and saw Ning Shu find the money. She immediately came to grab it. "You ate your brother's eggs, and now you're stealing money." Ning Shu took out several large bills. Wang Ying's mother tore at Ning Shu's hair, but Ning Shu pushed her away. Ning Shu planned to buy contraceptives on the street first. Wang Ying's mother grabbed Ning Shu's clothes. "What do you want the money for?" "It's for your brother's school fees." "What's with the noise? Can't you let me sleep?" A boy's voice that had gone through puberty sounded out. Wang Chao sleepily looked at his mother and sister tearing each other apart. Wang Chao was 15 or 16 years old. There was fluff on his mouth, and his face was full of irritation as he grabbed his messy hair. "Super, your sister took the family's money. I don't know what she's going to do. Hurry up and stop her." Wang Ying's mother hurriedly said. "That's for your school fees." Wang Chao immediately came over to grab Ning Shu. As he had just woken up, he did not rinse his mouth. The taste in his mouth was as if he had eaten feces. Ning Shu directly gave him a kick and kicked him to the ground. He really wanted to beat this little bastard up. The whole family poured their hearts out for him. The client sacrificed the opportunity to study just to fulfill his wish. He was just a selfish guy. When he grew up, he would still be a good-for-nothing. Wang Chao was in pain from Ning Shu's kick. He cried out in pain. Wang Ying's mother immediately felt sorry for her son and helped him up. Ning Shu ran out of the house with the money and rode his bicycle to town. Wang Ying's mother cursed behind his back. Ning Shu turned a deaf ear. When Ning Shu arrived in town, he first went to the small pharmacy to buy birth control pills. He checked the expiration date of the pills. Then, he swallowed them. After taking the pills, Ning Shu locked his bicycle and got on the car to go to the county. There was also a police station in town, but Ning Shu did not want to deal with it in town. It was estimated that this matter would be left unsettled. In the end, she might even marry Li Bing, the rapist. Moreover, it was also a scandal if such a thing happened in the jurisdiction. Therefore, Ning Shu could only appeal to the higher authorities. The rapist raped someone and did not receive any punishment. He even got a wife. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Ning Shu took a bumpy ride to the county police station and went to the designated place to report the case. "I was raped. I want to report it." Ning Shu said to the police with red eyes. Since he wanted to report whether he was raped, he had to check it. The policewoman took Ning Shu to the examination room. Ning Shu took off his pants and lay on the table with his legs open. The policewoman checked carefully and then wrote the report. She also took the secretions inside to check if there was other people's DNA. It's freshly broken. Now, we just have to wait for the results. Have you taken birth control pills? The policewoman Ning Shu asked with concern. Ning Shu nodded with red eyes. The policewoman checked Ning Shu's body for traces. There were traces on his back, wrists, and chest. Ning Shu took out the underwear he had changed out of before. This is the underwear I changed out of before. It has his body fluid on it. See if it's useful. It's useful. The policewoman took a plastic bag and put away the underwear. Perhaps the policewoman was also a woman. She sympathized with Ning Shu and did not despise him like other women. When something between a man and a woman happens, the one who is condemned and despised is always the woman, even if the woman is the victim. The policewoman poured a glass of water for Ning Shu. Please tell us the details of the case. Ning Shu took the paper cup with trembling hands. He looked nervous and frightened. Don't be nervous. You just need to tell us the details of the case. Only then can we file a case. The policewoman comforted Ning Shu. Ning Shu stuttered as she explained the result of the incident. The policewoman asked, "Where's your family?" "My family didn't come. If my family knows that I reported the case, they will kill me. Dirty linen should not be aired in public, not to mention this kind of thing. She might really be killed. But she didn't fight for it. She was forced by these people to make a decision. The client didn't resist. What was the fate waiting for the client? Deserted by all, 2 cans of pesticide down his throat. Ning Shu could punish Li Bing silently, but he couldn't just let him go. Li Bing was already an old bachelor in his 30s. If he went to jail for rape, he would be in his 40s when he came out. Another point was that Wang Ying herself was very, very concerned about the fact that she was raped. The surrounding rumors made Wang Ying completely deny herself. Why would she be raped? She was defiled. People all over the world were laughing at her. Wang Ying even despised herself. That was why she wanted to die. She was mentally weak. Her family's education and the surrounding environment had a subtle influence. Living in such a place where men were extremely valued over women, there were even daughters-in-law who gave birth to 3 daughters and couldn't give birth to a son who was kicked out of her husband's family. The value of a woman was compressed again and again. Sometimes, the only one who could hurt herself was herself. Chapter 15-13. Wang Ying grew up in such an environment and was very concerned about being raped. She couldn't get over the hurdle in her heart, and she was very concerned about the rumors around her. There was probably no woman who didn't care about being raped. But this had happened, and no one comforted her. The physical pain was fine, but she had to be hurt psychologically again. Ning Shu thought for a while and decided to report the case. The more you cared, the more people would attack you. A true warrior dared to face a bleak life. This had already happened, and he could only remove the barrier in his heart. Of course, just letting Li Bing go to jail was letting him off too easily. Since you like to rape people so much, I'll let you play in jail. After reporting the case, Ning Shu planned to go back. He was ready to face the rumors from all directions, all kinds of verbal attacks and ridicule. The policewoman gave Ning Shu 2 bags of bread and said, "I'll send you back now." The policewoman planned to drive Ning Shu back. Ning Shu waved his hand, "No need, I can go back by myself." "Well, be careful on the road. When our test results are out, we will give you justice," the policewoman said. "When you're hurt, you have to call the police to protect yourself. Compromise won't solve the problem. You did a good job. The policewoman patted Ning Shu's shoulder. Ning Shu's mouth twitched, but the public opinion in society was huge. Especially when women themselves were unwilling to face such public opinion, many times they chose to compromise. For example, if they were molested on the bus, some women would resist, but most would choose not to say anything. Anyway, they would get off the bus later, so it was better to avoid trouble. They only taught women to protect themselves, but no one told men that it was wrong to do so, and that it was a crime. Fuck. Ning Shu would definitely not compromise now, and there was no reason for her to bear all this. Ning Shu went home in the bumpy van. He had spent a lot of money, and he would probably be nagged when he got home. Ning Shu hadn't reached the door yet when he saw some people gathered in front of his door. What was going on? Ning Shu walked over. These rural women were all pointing at Ning Shu and saying, "You still have the nerve to go out. That's right. If you want me to die, I'll just knock myself to death." Ning Shu looked at the woman who spoke. Her skin was dark, but she was wearing a red dress. She was simply unrecognizable. "Since you want to die so badly, I'll help you." Ning Shu grabbed her hair, which was permed like dry grass, and slammed it against the wall. The woman whose hair was grabbed by Ning Shu screamed, and the others hurried over to stop the fight. Ning Shu pulled her hair hard and tore off a lot of it. The woman howled in pain, "You shameless bitch, you've been fucked by a man." Ning Shu gave him a backhand slap. "Say another word and I'll break your jaw. You came to my door and babbled. In the future, I'll beat you every time I see you. I'm a bitch. Even if I'm going to die, I'll pull you with me. With your virtue, when you go to hell, I'll pull out your tongue." Ning Shu's face was ferocious, and he gloomily said, "Even if I die and become a ghost, I won't let go of those gossiping women. I'll choke her and pull out her tongue." These women were frightened by Ning Shu's gloomy words. Their faces were somewhat unnatural. You were raped by Li Bing." "Say that again." Ning Shu lightly looked at the woman who spoke. "I was raped, but it's better than you having an affair." "You're more shameless." "What nonsense are you talking about?" When did I have an affair?" "You bitch, tell me clearly." The woman agitatedly shouted at Ning Shu. Ning Shu took a step toward the woman. The woman's face changed and stepped back. "Still not getting out of here? If you dare to surround my house, I'll be forced to my death by you. You'd better hope that I'll live well. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what I'll do when I'm stimulated." Ning Shu grinned and said. These women who were watching the fun pulled each other away. From time to time, they secretly glanced at Ning Shu. The more you care, the more people will attack you. They will get a more perverted sense of satisfaction from you. Ning Shu wanted to turn around and enter the house. Wang Ying's father threw a stool at Ning Shu. Ning Shu felt something flying toward him. His body reflexively dodged. He saw the stool hit the ground and rolled twice. How painful it would be if it hit his body. Ning Shu looked at Wang Ying's father. He was a man in his 50s. He looked very old and his skin was dark. Wang Ying's father panted and looked at Ning Shu. His face was very ugly. "You still have the nerve to come back. Family misfortune. How can you be so shameless?" Ning Shu said indifferently. "I was forced. I didn't want to. The person who was hurt is me. Li Bing didn't rape others." "Why did he rape you?" Wang Ying's father saw Ning Shu's shameless look and became even angrier. "Who knows? Maybe he saw that my father is a coward, my brother is a coward, my mother is a coward, and I'm a coward. My whole family is cowards. They only dare to be rude to their family and don't dare to find trouble with him. So he raped me." Wang Ying's father was so angry that he was panting. "Shameless. Look at how thick-skinned you are now. My Wang family's face has been ruined by you. How can we continue to stay in this place? Then are you going to throw me into the pig cage? Even if you want to, you should throw the adulterer into the pig cage together with me. Ning Shu did not expect the news of her rape to spread so quickly. What happened last night was reported to the county in the morning. Now, everyone knew about it. Ning Shu looked at the attitude of her family and felt bitterly disappointed. They did not sympathize with her daughter's pain. They only blamed her for being raped. She didn't do it willingly. She was forced to do it. He didn't even have the courage to extort money from Li Bing. He only felt that it was embarrassing. She wished she had never given birth to such an embarrassing daughter. She did not say a word of comfort. Instead, it stabbed her in the heart. Sister, where did you take the money? Wang Chao's mother, Ning Shu, asked. Ning Shu rolled her eyes. I don't know. I used it all up. Mom, I still want to buy sneakers and jerseys. Wang Chao shouted at her mother. She looked extremely irritated. Wang Chao was a rebellious adolescent. When she was at the peak of her vanity, she only cared about her jerseys and sneakers. She did not pay much attention to what happened to her sister. She only felt embarrassed. Wang Ying, where's the money? You took a few $100s. Where did you take the money? Wang Ying's mother, Ning Shu, asked. A few $100s was not a small amount. I used it all up. Ning Shu said casually. Chapter 15-14. When Wang Ying's mother heard that Ning Shu had used up all the money, her heart ached. She went out to the yard and pulled out a branch to hit Ning Shu. Ning Shu was speechless. Damn, it felt like the world was really dark. Wang Ying's mother raised the branch and hit Ning Shu hard. Ning Shu dodged to the side and snatched the branch from her hand, then looked at Wang Chao with a mischievous smile. Ning Shu waved the branch and hit Wang Chao. The Wangs were angry, and so was she. Ning Shu didn't hit her elders, but she didn't care about Wang Chao. Ning Shu hit Wang Chao hard. With a slap, a red mark appeared on Wang Chao's body. Wang Chao cried out in pain, his face contorted. What are you doing, you? Before Wang Chao could finish, Ning Shu waved the branch again and hit Wang Chao's face. Wang Chao immediately covered his face. Ning Shu hit Wang Chao hard. Wang Chao cried out in pain and ran and jumped in the yard. Ning Shu chased after him and hit him hard. Wang Chao quickly hid behind his mother. Mom, save me. Sister is crazy. Wang Chao grimaced. He was taller than his mother, but he hunched his back and hid behind Wang Ying's mother. Ning Shu's mouth twitched. What a good-for-nothing. For every 100 girls born, there would be 113 boys who would be a match. Thus, the remaining 13 boys would not have a match and would be destined to die alone. Ning Shu clapped. Serves you right for valuing boys over girls. These good-for-nothings can't even find a wife. You bastard, how dare you hit your brother? Wang Ying's mother, Ning Shu, shouted angrily and protected her son behind her. Ning Shu tapped his palm with the branch. If you hit me again, I will hit her. Wang Ying had been hit countless times since she was young, and most of the time, it was her mother who hit her. Usually, it was her mother who took care of Wang Chao and gave her whatever she wanted. Whenever there was good food at home, she would give it to Wang Chao first. Ning Shu felt that it was meaningless. They were both women. Why did they have to treat their daughter like this? Could it be that a fight between a mother and a daughter would be reflected in a fight between the same sex? You're crazy. Wang Chao poked his head out from behind Mother Wang. You were raped and went crazy. Now you're taking it out on me. Ning Shu sneered. You better not sleep tonight. Otherwise, I will cut off your tongue. Ning Shu wouldn't hit these two elders. But what about Wang Chao? Hitting Wang Chao would definitely make the two elders' hearts ache. This kind of good-for-nothing should be beaten more often to prevent them from harming society. Expecting a son like Wang Chao to take care of his old age was simply hastening his old age. Shameless thing. Wang Ying's father grabbed the teacup on the table and threw it at Ning Shu. Ning Shu dodged the teacup. The teacup fell to the ground, and the water inside spilled out with white smoke. I am embarrassed, but do you dare to look for Li Bing? Ning Shu asked indifferently. Don't you think it's embarrassing enough? Do you want everyone to know? How did you give birth to a damned debt-seeking girl like you? Wang Ying's mother immediately shouted shrilly and patted her own face. You don't want your face, but I want my old face. Ning Shu, coward, you're quite capable of shouting at me. Ning Shu went into his room and closed the door. Anyway, she couldn't count on this family to seek justice for her. It was just that she didn't care about the person who entrusted her. Sooner or later, her daughter would become someone else's daughter. At that time, she could still receive some gift money. Reading books for a girl was simply a joke. Wang Ying's mother kept scolding outside the door. She scolded Ning Shu for being shameless. She raised such a daughter for nothing. If she had known, she would have fallen to her death when she was born. Otherwise, she would have ruined the family's reputation. In the future, which man would want this damned shameless girl? There was also Wang Chao's croaky voice during his puberty. Wang Ying's father's low-quality cigarette drifted into the room. Ning Shu listened to Wang Ying's mother's words. His heart didn't waver at all. He only felt a little sad. These women were staunch supporters of a patriarchal society. Their own rights, even basic human rights, were deprived, and this idea was passed down from generation to generation. You want me to die, so I'll live on. I'll live better than anyone else. Only when one's heart is strong can one be truly strong. Only when one can treat things as normal can one be truly strong. Everyone exaggerated the matter of being raped. Being raped was the same as being hurt or killed. As long as there was a bit of erotic information, people would always look at women strangely. Ning Shu was cultivating in the room. His lower body had been uncomfortable, and there were some bloodstains on his pants. Ning Shu used the last bit of spiritual energy in his body to relieve the discomfort. When it was time to eat, no one called Ning Shu. Ning Shu opened the door himself, sat on the bench, picked up the steamed bun, and ate the few pieces of meat in the dish. Wang Chao looked at Ning Shu. Usually, he ate these things. He was growing. Wang Chao always felt that he wasn't tall enough. Other people could drink milk, but Wang Chao couldn't. This made Wang Chao very dissatisfied. Wang Chao ate all the delicious food first. This was basically the unspoken rule of the family. Usually, Wang Ying wouldn't touch Wang Chao's food. Now that Ning Shu ate the meat, Wang Chao was very angry. Ning Shu bit the steamed bun and ignored Wang Chao's angry eyes. He smiled and said, looking at me like this, do you want me to slap you? You. Madman, Wang Chao bit the steamed bun angrily. Wang Ying's father slammed the chopsticks on the table. His old face was full of anger. Look at you now. Go to the kitchen and eat. I usually spoil you too much. I even let you eat at the table. Look at other women. Wang Ying's father said with a livid face. Oh, I forgot that women can't eat at the table in this place. He moved a small stool and curled up to eat in the kitchen. Ning Shu didn't move and said insincerely, thank you for your kindness, Dad. He asked him to eat in the kitchen, but he didn't even let him eat at the table. Then everyone should stop eating. Just flip the table. So what if you want to live like a yes man? Ning Shu finished all the food on the plate with a few chopsticks. There was soup left. There wasn't even a bit of oil in the soup. Ning Shu burped and said with satisfaction, this is the first time I've eaten so much. I didn't dare to reach out my chopsticks before. As soon as he reached out his chopsticks, Wang Ying's mother would hit him with a pair of chopsticks. I'm done. You guys take your time. Ning Shu stood up and went back into the house. Wang Ying's mother's face was ugly. Did this girl go crazy? Now she really didn't dare to hit her daughter. She was afraid that she would beat Wang Chao. Chapter 15:15. Wang Ying's father's face looked even older. He kept smoking a low-quality cigarette without a filter. Wang Chao's face was full of anger. Seeing that there was no food on the plate, he angrily threw his chopsticks away. What are you eating? There's no food left. Wang Ying's mother immediately said, you can eat steamed buns dipped in oil. Super, just bear with it. I'll fry some eggs and noodles for you tonight. I don't want to eat anymore. It's so annoying. Wang Chao's face had a red mark from Ning Shu's slap. It ran across his face and was now a little green. Wang Chao touched his swollen face. If I'm disfigured, I'll fight it out with Wang Ying. How can I meet people like this? I'm not going to school. Mom, help my teacher apply for leave. Wang Chao said angrily. Wang Ying's mother immediately said, how can you not go to school? If you don't go to school, how can you keep up with your homework? You still have to rely on high school to get into university in the future. If you get into university, your dad and I will sell everything we have to support your studies. You will be able to bring honor to your ancestors in the future. You guys are so annoying. Getting into university is a distant matter. Anyway, help me apply for leave. Wang Ying bitch will make me a laughingstock. Wang Chao was very annoyed. He went back to his room to play games. Ning Shu listened to Wang Ying's mother's words in the room. She curled her lips. With Wang Chao's grades, it would be a bit difficult for him to get into high school, let alone get into university. Even if you have to sell everything you have to support him, TSK, when Wang Chao gets married in the future, you guys will have to sell everything you have. Ning Shu planned in her heart. When this matter is solved, she will go out and find a job. In this place, there are always some gossipy women who use all kinds of vicious words to attack people. She is now in existence hated by people and dogs. Her family can't wait for her to die. Ning Shu will wait for the test results. When the time comes, she will be able to catch Li Bing. That old bastard will definitely not let you off so easily. He was an old bachelor who raped a girl who wasn't even 18 years old. He had a wife and a child. What kind of evil trend was this? In the future, a man who couldn't find a wife would go out and rape a woman. Then, he would be able to form a family with the woman he raped. Ning Shu's heart felt like it was about to explode. Even if she was raped, she would never compromise. She would be able to start a new life. The client had never been able to walk out of this shadow. Because of this injury, Wang Ying felt that her life was over. She did not have the right to live a new life. What made Ning Shu even angrier was that Li Bing, who had raped the client, had actually passed by her house. Sometimes, they would even shout Ning Shu's name, attracting a crowd of onlookers. At this time, the Wang family's doors were tightly shut, not daring to let out a fart. Ning Shu looked at Li Bing through the window. Li Bing's ugly appearance made Ning Shu can't help but cover his eyes. No wonder he couldn't find a wife. Ugly and poor. What made Ning Shu even more disgusted was that Li Bing deliberately touched his crotch in front of Ning Shu. Really arrogant. Who told you to be arrogant? There will always be a time when you'll be scared to the point of peeing. It's all because of you, you've done such a shameful thing. Look at you. Wang Ying chattered, why don't you go to hell? How can you have the nerve to live after such a thing happened? You only know how to scold me. If you have the ability, go scold the people outside. Ning Shu sneered. Human feelings were indifferent. Even if they were relatives, they could be like enemies. They couldn't wait to kill each other. Ning Shu took a pair of large scissors that Wang Ying's mother used to make saws. He opened the door and rushed toward the wretched and disgusting Li Bing. Seeing Ning Shu holding a pair of scissors, Li Bing's face changed and immediately ran away. The surrounding people also dispersed, for fear of being accidentally injured. You still don't think it's shameful enough? With your appearance, let's see which man would want you. Wang Ying's father smoked a cigarette, his hand trembled. Hiding in the house like this is not shameful at all. She doesn't have any temper and still wants to save face. What the hell is this? Bitch. Wang Chao scolded Ning Shu. Clearly, he was still holding a grudge against Ning Shu for slapping his face. He purposely poked Ning Shu's sore spot. Ning Shu took the scissors and snapped it twice. Shut up for me, or tonight I'll take the scissors and cut off your tongue. You're a madman. Wang Chao bitterly said. But seeing Ning Shu's calm face, his heart was somewhat afraid. He straightened his neck to make himself look less embarrassed. Useless snack. Ning Shu disdainfully scolded. He's your brother, how can you scold him like this? Wang Ying's mother said unhappily. She reached out her hand to hit Ning Shu, but immediately retracted it. Not only will I scold him, if he makes me unhappy, I'll beat him to death. Ning Shu's facial muscles trembled as he looked at Wang Chao with a ferocious expression. Wang Chao didn't dare to make a sound. Recently, Ning Shu was very overbearing. He didn't leave any food for Wang Chao. With a few chopsticks, he would pick up food and eat it with steamed buns. This made Wang Chao unable to eat properly. He hadn't eaten anything good in a long time. Whenever there was something good to eat, it would be snatched by that crazy woman. Wang Ying's mother felt sorry for her son. In the middle of the night, she made fried egg shredded meat noodles for her son to eat. Ning Shu, who was cultivating, was speechless. He was really guarding against her like she was a thief. But now, no one in the family would yell at her, and no one dared to hit her. Maybe she would go crazy and beat Wang Chao. After she was raped by Li Bing, there were new rumors that Wang Ying went crazy after being raped. The crazy Wang Ying was very crazy. If there was no reason, don't go near her. Otherwise, you might be beaten up. When Wang Ying's father heard these words, he seemed to be very moved. He wanted to send the embarrassing Ning Shu to a mental hospital. Ning Shu was speechless. She was only protecting herself, but in the eyes of others, it was a crazy move. Should she cower, cry, and let others see her as a joke? Satisfy the curiosity of these people who were watching the show. Even if she was dead, these people would still point at her corpse and whisper. Before Wang Ying's father could say anything, she said, "If you want to send me to a mental hospital, then I must take Wang Chao with me. After all, we are so close. Even if my brother doesn't accompany me, I will chop off his arm and take it to a mental hospital," Ning Shu said with a smile and put a rusty kitchen knife on the table. Mental hospital? What does it have to do with me? Wang Chao said with a pale face. His face was blue where Ning Shu slapped him. Wang Ying's parents' faces were even worse. They didn't dare to directly say that they wanted to send Ning Shu to a mental hospital. Ning Shu rolled her eyes and patted Wang Chao's shoulder. "Brother, sister loves you. No matter where I go, I will not forget you, my dear brother." Wang Chao was shocked by Ning Shu's pat and his body trembled. "Wang Chao, you're crazy." Chapter 15-16. The siren of the police car stopped at the entrance of the courtyard. Ning Shu curled his lips. The police had finally arrived. In the police car, a few policemen in police uniforms came down. Among them was the policewoman who had served Ning Shu before. When Wang Ying's parents saw the police, their faces changed. They were afraid that they would get into trouble. Ning Shu even saw Wang Ying's mother's legs shaking. He wondered how Li Bing would react when he saw the police. The policewoman asked Wang Ying's mother, "Does Wang Ying live here?" Wang Ying's mother didn't dare to say a word. She brought the policewoman to Ning Shu's room. Ning Shu was lying on the bed. His eyes were red and his face was pale and haggard. "Now you have to follow us to identify the person who raped you. Are you okay?" Ning Shu struggled to get up and nodded. "I can do it." The policewoman helped Ning Shu up. "You even called the police. Aren't you embarrassed enough? You have to make it known to everyone." Wang Ying's father was so angry that his hands were shaking. Ning Shu cried and said, "Dad, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't want to do it. I was raped. It's not my fault." The policewoman stood on Ning Shu's side and said, "Rape is against the law. You didn't report it. Instead, you covered it up. You are all guilty." Wang Ying's mother's face changed. She pulled her husband and said to the police, "Police, that's not what I meant. I'm afraid that those people will gossip about my daughter. If that happens, no one will marry her." The policewoman ignored them. She brought Ning Shu to the car and went to Li Bing's house. Li Bing lived in the next team. "Don't be afraid." The policewoman grabbed Ning Shu's hand and comforted Ning Shu. Ning Shu lowered his head and said, "Thank you. You're the first one to support me. My family thinks I'm an embarrassment. Don't worry, we will definitely give you justice," the policewoman said gently. He didn't expect to receive encouragement and care from a stranger. Li Bing's family was as poor as a church mouse. He had an old mother, and his father was a miner in his early years, but he was buried. His body had not been found yet. It could be said that he was extremely poor. When the police car stopped, several male police officers immediately opened the car door. They quickly got out of the car and took Li Bing into custody and handcuffed him. Li Bing was so scared that he almost peed his pants. What did I do wrong?" Female suspect. "You have to come with us now," the policeman said. "I didn't." Li Bing guiltily defended himself. Ning Shu rushed out of the car and rushed over to Li Bing, punching and kicking him. "You bastard, you're killing me." When Ning Shu hit him, he did a little trick. "Okay, the law will punish him." The policewoman pulled Ning Shu back. "Take him up," the policewoman said. "No one can take my son away." Li Bing's mom rushed out. "My son didn't rape a woman, it's all because she seduced my son. You should arrest that bitch." Li Bing's mom was a shrew. She sat on the ground and kicked her legs. "It's unreasonable to bully a widow and an orphan like me." Li Bing's mom kicked her legs and clapped her hands on the ground. She cried. "It's all because of that bitch who seduced my son. Today, whoever takes my son away, I'll fight it out with you." The policewoman took out the arrest warrant. "This is the arrest warrant for your son." "I don't care about the arrest warrant. If you take my son away today, I'll die in front of you. Come and take a look. I'm bullying a widow and an orphan. You can kill me." Li Bing's mom's voice was high-pitched. Ning Shu hid behind the policewoman. He looked at the woman who was making a scene in fear. The policewoman was a little impatient. She said directly, "Arrest her for obstructing official business. Go to the police station first." Li Bing's mom was dumbfounded. She was put into the police car by the police. Li Bing and Li Bing's mom were arrested. The policewoman Ning Shu asked, "Do you want your parents to go with you?" Ning Shu shook his head. "I can go alone. My parents think I'm embarrassing." "You bitch, it's all because you seduced my son. Even if you put your NBI in front of my son wouldn't even look at it. He even wants to rape you. Pfft, look at yourself. You're the one who forced my son." Otherwise, how could my son have slept with you, slut? Li Bing's mother cursed. Ning Shu lowered his head and wiped his tears. The policewoman was speechless. She even forced her son. She should look at her son's face. Shut up. If you continue to make a scene, your son's crime will be more serious. The policewoman said sternly. Mom, don't say any more. Li Bing immediately said. Since her son spoke, she didn't dare to say anything. In the future, she would have to rely on her son. She didn't dare to disobey her son. However, she still stared at Ning Shu, who was sitting in the front row. This is all a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding. Li Bing showed his yellow teeth and said flatteringly to the police. Wang Ying and I are dating. We are just doing it normally. Ning Shu desperately shook his head. No, he raped me. I'm not dating him. He's so old and ugly. Plus, he has a tigress mother at home. No one wants to marry him. You bitch. If you dare to say another word, I'll tear your ass apart. Let's see how you seduce men. My son fell into your trap. Li Bing's mom scolded Ning Shu with her mouth full of shit. Her voice was loud and unpleasant. The surrounding policemen couldn't help but frown. Ning Shu was speechless. TSK, TSK, TSK. The client had to live with such a mother-in-law. It was hell on earth. Every day, she would use the harshest and most filthy words to attack him personally. He really wanted to sew her mouth shut. What an annoying and ignorant bitch. When they arrived at the county police station, Li Bing was taken to the interrogation room. Wang Ying, good job. Let's see which man wants a shameless woman like you in the future. Li Bing roared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't even bother to look at him. He was too ugly. Ning Shu said, he's threatening me. Don't worry, we've seen everything he's done. Li Bing was taken to the interrogation room. The police extracted mucus from his mouth and compared it with the previous one. Before the results are out, you should tell us the process. That way, you can be considered as turning yourself in. The police said to Wang Chao. Wang Chao's legs kept shaking under the table, but he still firmly insisted that it wasn't rape. I didn't rape her. She's lying. Yes, she seduced me. You're also men. It's hard to resist a woman's seduction. Besides, I've never had a wife. Li Bing's head was covered in cold sweat. His legs under the table shook even more. His eyes were drifting. With his guilty look, even a blind person could tell that he wasn't telling the truth. Chapter 15-17. Li Bing refused to admit that he had raped her. Even if he was extremely guilty now, anyone could see that he was guilty. But he insisted that it was Ning Shu who had seduced him and that they were a couple. His girlfriend seduced him, so of course he didn't have to endure it. After that, the police placed the test results in front of Li Bing. This is ironclad evidence. Your body fluid was found in the victim's body. I had that kind of relationship with Wang Ying, so I'm definitely in her body. I've said it before, I'm in a legitimate relationship with her. I didn't rape her. We were both willing. It was that bitch who wanted to blackmail me. I was wronged. I was wronged. Li Bing still cried out. Then what about this surveillance video? Did you see it clearly? The police pushed the computer in front of Li Bing and pressed the confirm button. The pixel of the video was not good. It was the surveillance video of the supermarket. First, a woman entered the small warehouse. Not long after, a man came to the door of the warehouse. He looked around and then entered the warehouse. The video captured Li Bing's face. This is you, right? Li Bing's forehead was sweating. He stammered, I just wanted to be intimate with my girlfriend. Li Bing was an unloader. When the goods arrived at the supermarket, Li Bing helped to unload the goods from the truck. If there was work, he would do it. If there was no work, he would stay at home. Anyway, the woman accused you of rape. You can discuss whether you want to settle this privately or publicly. The police said. If the woman is willing to give a statement and admit that you are a couple, this matter can be settled privately. If the other party insists on suing you, you may face jail time. When Li Bing heard that he would go to jail, his face turned green. I will go to jail. In Li Bing's heart, only murder would cause him to go to jail. He didn't do anything. How could he go to jail? Li Bing was temporarily detained. The follow-up of this matter would have to be seen. Li Bing was a little uneasy, but he comforted himself in his heart that Wang Ying wouldn't dare to make a big deal out of this. After a while, he would be able to get out. Do you want to settle this privately? The policewoman handed Ning Shu a paper cup filled with water. Ning Shu held the cup, lowered his head and said, I definitely won't settle this privately. This matter can't be settled privately. This isn't my fault. Why did the victim have to bear it? It was obvious that the perpetrator was fine, just because she was a woman. Ning Shu wasn't afraid of rumors and slanders. He wasn't afraid of these verbal attacks. He only dared to spout nonsense. If you have the ability, what can you do to me? Do you dare to lay a finger on me? She would never compromise with a rapist. I definitely won't settle this privately. According to the law, those who rape women by violence, coercion or other means shall be sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison. Moreover, Li Bing refused to admit his guilt. He insisted that he and Wang Ying had a normal relationship. I'll send you back, the policewoman Ning Shu said. Ning Shu thanked her repeatedly, thank you. I think your family doesn't treat you very well. I'll go back with you. At least I can intimidate your parents. Sometimes, you can't imagine living in a modern society. I received a report from a village that wanted to drown a woman. Fortunately, we rushed there quickly and it didn't lead to a tragedy. Ning Shu was speechless. It's because that woman is a widow, and a beautiful one at that. The policewoman spread her hands and said helplessly, sometimes, people's ignorance and stupidity are beyond your imagination. Ning Shu nodded, anyway, thank you. Although Ning Shu felt that no one would do anything to him, the policewoman's thoughts made Ning Shu's heart feel very warm. He who is wise in reading knows that the universe is big, and he cherishes the grass and trees. The policewoman drove Ning Shu to the door of his house. Ning Shu got out of the car. Wang Ying's mother was feeding the chickens. She glanced at Ning Shu and continued to feed the chickens. She didn't ask about Ning Shu at all. Wang Ying's father sat on the threshold and smoked. His face was full of worry. Wang Chao was probably holed up in the house playing controller games again. Anyway, no one was happy about Ning Shu's return. Even the policewoman was a little embarrassed. She walked to the side of the chicken coop and said to Wang Ying's mother, Wang Ying has been hurt and is a little traumatized. Please take care of her. Wang Ying's mother lowered her eyelids and poured the corn kernels from the broken bowl into the chicken coop. She said to the policewoman, after doing such a thing, the whole village knows that our Wang family has done such a shameful thing. Do you still want me to worship her like a bodhisattva? Wang Ying's mother said sarcastically as she clasped her hands together and bowed. After such a shameful thing happened, you still want to call the police and let everyone know. I don't have such a shameless daughter. The policewoman suddenly didn't know what to say. She looked at Ning Shu helplessly. Some things couldn't be explained by just saying it. They had their own logic, and they firmly believed that their logic was correct. The policewoman didn't waste her time saying anything to Wang Ying's mother. Instead, she said to Ning Shu, don't be sad. Relax. This is the same as being in a car accident and breaking your leg, or being scratched by someone and being robbed. There's nothing you can't get through. Ning Shu looked up and smiled at the policewoman. Thank you, I understand. Then I'm leaving. Call me if there's anything. The policewoman opened the car door. Ning Shu walked to the car window and said to the policewoman, "Can you lend me something?" "A recording pen." The policewoman took out a recording pen from the pocket of her uniform. "Here, this is what we use for investigation. Take it first." Ning Shu put the recording pen in his pocket. "I'm leaving. Remember to call me if there's anything." The policewoman stepped on the accelerator and turned the steering wheel to leave. Wang Ying's mother looked at Ning Shu from the corner of her eyes. "You still have the nerve to laugh. Don't you have any shame?" Ning Shu said directly, "No, not at all. I've inherited you in this aspect." "Damn woman." Wang Ying's mother raised her hand and wanted to hit Ning Shu. Ning Shu immediately shouted, "Brother, my dear brother, where are you? Sister misses you so much." Wang Ying's mother's expression changed. Ning Shu went to his room. When he passed by Wang Ying's father who was sitting on the threshold, he called him Dad. Ning Shu found a bag and packed all the clothes he could wear. When this matter was over, he wanted to leave this place and start a new life. How could he talk about starting a new life in this poor place? He wanted to go out and see the world. Trapping himself in this uncivilized lump, surrounded by negative comments, was simply self-torture. When it was time for dinner, no one called Ning Shu. Ning Shu didn't stand on ceremony. He took out 3 eggs that Wang Ying's mother had hidden in the cupboard. Then, he lit a fire to fry the eggs and ate them. If he didn't eat his fill, he wouldn't have the energy to face these terrible things. Chapter 15:18. Ning Shu took the egg, which made Wang Ying's mother very angry, but she didn't dare to hit her. Now, her daughter had been driven crazy. The wretched girl who gave up on herself could do anything. She might even beat her son if she was angry. She was used to being a humble and obedient daughter. Such a rebellious and selfish daughter was particularly annoying. "Wang Ying, get out here. Shameless bitch, you seduced my son and even sued him for rape." Shameless bitch. The sky was dark, and suddenly there was a sharp scolding sound at the door. Ning Shu was eating noodles when she heard such a loud voice. Moreover, the words were so vulgar and distinctive. She knew it was Li Bing's mother. Ning Shu calmly picked up the noodles and gulped down the soup. "Look at what you have done. Now you can't live in peace." Wang Ying's mother, Ning Shu, spat. The scolding outside the house continued, which attracted a lot of people. They came over with flashlights to watch the show. Li Bing's mother saw that there were more people and scolded more and more vigorously. All kinds of dirty words were not repeated. Ning Shu drank the last mouthful of soup in the bowl and burped. "Can't you let me sleep? What's the fuss about?" Wang Chao came out of the room, looking unhappy. Ning Shu smiled and walked toward Wang Chao. She grabbed Wang Chao's collar and pulled him to the door. "Let's go and seek justice with sister. Sister loves you so much. You won't leave her in the lurch, right? Let go of Wang Chao. There are so many people outside. What if they hurt Wang Chao?" Wang Ying's mother quickly pulled Ning Shu's hand and asked Ning Shu to let go of Wang Chao. Wang Chao was also struggling. "This is all your fault. You didn't even inform your family before calling the police. Now that they've come knocking on our door, all you know is to pull people away." Ning Shu tilted his head and looked at Wang Chao, whose face was red from struggling. The client had no sense of presence in this family. His parents did not love him. Actually, it didn't matter if her father didn't dote on her or her mother didn't love her. The key was that she had also put herself down very low. She didn't even love herself. Ning Shu loosened his grip on Wang Chao's collar. Wang Chao was originally struggling, but Ning Shu suddenly released him and he fell to the ground with a plop. Wang Chao rubbed his buttocks and grimaced in pain. Wang Ying's father smoked a cigarette and said, "Don't go out. Wait for her to make a fuss for a while and then she will leave when she is bored." Ning Shu sneered in his heart. He opened the door and reached into his pocket. Li Bing's mom was sitting on the ground crying. When she saw Ning Shu come out, she stood up from the ground and pointed at Ning Shu and scolded him. She scolded him for being a bitch who seduced men shamelessly. Her spittle was flying everywhere. Many flashlights were shining on Ning Shu's face. Ning Shu used his hand to block the strong light from the flashlights. "Whoever dares to shine on my face again, I will not be polite," Ning Shu said coldly. Li Bing's mom scolded for a while and finally stopped. Ning Shu said, "Go and tell the police that you were willing. My son did not rape you." Li Bing's mom was arrested during the day. When she saw her son, she heard that he was going to jail. The only way was to let the woman admit that it was not rape and that it was a consensual thing. When Li Bing's mom heard that her son was going to jail, she suddenly felt that the sky was falling down. Her son was her only support. If her son was going to jail, what should she do? Li Bing's mom came back overnight. As soon as she came back, she ran to Ning Shu's house and made a big fuss. Li Bing's mom had already thought about it. She wanted to scold the Wang family until they could not find North. She wanted to overwhelm them and then negotiate with her. Ning Shu listened to Li Bing's mom's request without any expression. "Wang girl, you are a girl. If this matter becomes big, it will not do you any good. Let's see who dares to marry you. Even if I don't marry in this life, I want Li Bing to go to jail." Ning Shu said indifferently, "He hurt me. How can I let it go so easily? I am not afraid that no man wants me. I just don't know if Li Bing is afraid of going to jail." Ning Shu grinned. "You black-hearted rotten thing. If you really want to do this, you deserve to be raped." Li Bing's mom shouted angrily. Ning Shu said loudly, "Everyone listen. She admitted that her son raped me. When the time comes, the police will talk to you. You all have to testify in court." The people around quickly dispersed. It was okay to watch the show, but it was not worth it to get into trouble. Of course, there were still a lot of people who were watching the show. "Nonsense. When did my son rape you? It was you who shamelessly climbed into my son's bed." Ning Shu was speechless. "Are you blind? Don't you see what your son looks like? He is an old bachelor. Who would climb into his bed? He is old and ugly. I will not change my confession even if I die. I want your son to go to jail. Your son raped me. Even if I become a ghost, I will not let him go." Li Bing's mom wanted to kill Ning Shu, but she was really afraid that her son would go to jail. "It is not good for you to make a scene like this. You are a tough woman. Which man would dare to want you? If you tell the police that you did it willingly, I will let you marry Li Bing," Li Bing's mom said. Ning Shu was speechless. "Is marrying your son a big deal? Is your son's penis made of gold? You can even use this as a condition. Damn you." Wang Ying's mom quickly came out. Ning Shu said, "That's enough. Anyway, you and Li Bing already have that kind of relationship. You might as well get married." Ning Shu was speechless. "Are you my biological mother?" Ning Shu asked incredulously. "You want to marry the person who raped me?" Ning Shu smiled. After experiencing so much, Ning Shu felt that he was already used to it. 100 people have 100 logics. When these logics contradict you, don't panic. Then what do you think we should do? It is all your fault. You had to make such a big deal out of it. Now, people who don't know that you were raped already know. Who are you going to marry in the future? You can't stay at home for the rest of your life. You are always so disobedient. What do you think you can do to Li Bing? Li Bing is going to jail. What about you? What are you going to do in the future? If you don't listen to your elders, you will suffer. Wang Ying's mom chattered. Ning Shu smiled, that she was so considerate of her. She must be her biological mother. If you can get Li Bing out of jail, you can get married when Li Bing comes back. What do you think? Li Bing's mom said happily when she saw that the other party's elders had agreed. Although she was not satisfied with this daughter-in-law, the most important thing now was to get her son out of jail. Chapter 15:19. If they were really sentenced, then it would be over. If they bailed out their son, they would have to spend a lot of money. The guarantee money would definitely be in the tens of thousands. They were orphans and widows. If they had tens of thousands, they would have already gotten married. Now that they had grandchildren, their son would not have to rape women. I also agree that they should get married, Wang Ying's father said as he walked out of the house. Then we will be in-laws in the future, Li Bing's mom said happily. Ning Shu looked at these three people who added up to more than 150 years old and decided to marry her to a rapist so hastily. No one listened to her wishes and opinions. The client's fate was decided in such an ignorant situation. Marrying the person who raped and hurt her. Fate went with the flow. Ning Shu, ha ha ha. Isn't it shameful to become in-laws? Ning Shu's face was invulnerable. So what if she was raped? What can you do to me? I don't expect or need any man to forgive me and forgive me for being raped. Being alone for a lifetime was not right to be submissive to a man because she was raped. She was afraid that she would make a man unhappy because she was raped. Li Bing's mom thought that the matter was resolved, so she patted her butt and left in satisfaction. Before she left, she asked, "I'm a little hungry. Do you have any leftovers? Do you want to eat pig's food?" Ning Shu said coldly. "You are threatening me. I will not marry your son." Li Bing's mom sneered. "This was decided by me and your parents. When did it become your turn to speak, shameless woman?" Wang Ying's mom tugged at Ning Shu. "There's no more food." Li Bing's mom left unhappily. "She will be your mother-in-law in the future. Don't argue with her. Otherwise, you will suffer in the future," Wang Ying's mom said. Ning Shu chuckled. "If you want to marry, then marry. Damned woman, if you keep spouting nonsense, I'll tear your mouth off." Ning Shu closed the door, blocking out Wang Ying's mother's voice. She took out the things the policewoman had given her. This was what she had asked the policewoman for earlier. Everything that had just happened had been recorded. You want to get married just because you want to. You want to use this method to escape the punishment of the law. Dream on. If he couldn't change the world, then he would change himself. Compromising wouldn't make things better. Sometimes, taking a step back wouldn't make things better. If you take a step back, others won't appreciate it. Without principles and a bottom line, it would only be trampled upon by others, and your bottom line would be trampled even lower. Just like Li Bing's mom, she still felt that it was a glorious thing for someone else to marry her son. She wouldn't feel guilty for hurting you. Therefore, when you encounter such a situation, you have to know that they know pain and pain. Only then can you empathize with them. Ning Shu had never done anything to redeem someone. What she did was cremation. Then, she would send the Buddha to the west and scatter his ashes. Ning Shu wouldn't change a rapist, let alone an ugly rapist. Even if he was handsome, Ning Shu would still scatter his ashes. The next day, Ning Shu prepared to go to the county's police station. Before leaving, Wang Ying's mother stopped Ning Shu. "Speak nicely to the police. What good will Li Bing do for you if he goes to jail? It's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Li Bing won't stay in jail forever. After he is released, we still have to work together. We are all from the same village. Ning Shu felt that Wang Ying's mother was afraid that Li Bing would take revenge after he was released from jail. That's why she wanted to keep the peace. Ning Shu smiled and stretched out his hand. Wang Ying's mother asked, "What? Give me money. Do you want me to walk to the county? She wouldn't be able to reach the county by tomorrow morning." "I don't have money." Wang Ying's mother was unhappy when she talked about money. Ning Shu sat on the stool. "Then I won't go. I want Li Bing to go to jail more than anyone else. Give her some money. Just treat it as spending money to avoid disaster," Wang Ying's father said. Wang Ying's mother reluctantly went into the house to get the money. Ning Shu followed behind her and saw her take out a stack of money from the cabinet. Ning Shu took all the money. "How can you use so much money?" Wang Ying's mother wanted to snatch the money back. Ning Shu put the money in his pocket and went out. Ning Shu took a car to the county's police station. Today was the day of the court hearing. According to the law, Li Bing must go to jail. "Are you sure you want to sue? The county's TV station will record it and some tabloids will report it. Actually, very few women are willing to sue." The policewoman, Ning Shu, asked. This was originally a case where the public didn't report it to the authorities. Ning Shu nodded. "Of course I want to sue. I must sue. So what if the whole world knows that I was raped? In the end, I will let those rapists see the consequences of rape." "Okay then." The policewoman patted Ning Shu's shoulder. Ning Shu took out a recording pen. "When we are in court later, find a suitable opportunity to give this to the judge." The policewoman turned on the recording pen and listened to the recorded words. Then she looked at Ning Shu silently. "You are really suffering. Those people are also quite shameless." Ning Shu arrived at the court and found the public gallery to sit down. Li Bing's mom had arrived at the court a long time ago. When she saw Ning Shu, she quickly sat beside Ning Shu. "Daughter-in-law, later you will say that you were willing to do it. You are a couple. Do you understand?" "Ning Shu, I don't know." Li Bing's mom saw that Ning Shu didn't say anything. After Ning Shu agreed, she returned to her seat in satisfaction. The court hearing began. Li Bing was brought out. His hands were handcuffed, his hair was shaved, and he was wearing a prisoner's vest. Li Bing, who had shaved his head, looked even uglier. The judge read out Li Bing's crime. Li Bing was agitated and denied it. "I didn't rape her. Wang Ying and I are a couple. We are dating." Li Bing was very afraid of going to jail. Moreover, he had seen his mother in the morning. His mother had told him with certainty that Wang Ying had agreed to settle it privately. So what he had to do now was to deny it. He had to deny that rape was a crime. "Victim, please step forward." The judge called out to Ning Shu. Ning Shu quickly stood up. Everyone stared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu stood up with his head held high and his chest puffed out. He turned a blind eye to the strange gazes of these people. "Are you a couple with the suspect?" Judge Ning Shu asked. Li Bing and Li Bing's mom looked at Ning Shu expectantly. As long as Ning Shu said something, this matter would be resolved satisfactorily. Ning Shu gently curved the corners of his mouth. He lowered his head and shook his head. "We are not a couple. We are not dating. It's me. The surveillance video and recording pen in the supermarket can prove it." At this moment, someone handed the recording pen to the judge. The judge played the recording pen. Immediately, Li Bing's mom's fierce and sharp voice could be heard. Many people present covered their mouths and laughed. Li Bing's mom was so embarrassed that her face turned red. She couldn't help but scold Ning Shu, "You bitch, you even recorded it." Chapter 15-20. Li Bing's mom's threats to Ning Shu were all recorded. Ning Shu said, "I'm the victim. Why is the perpetrator so arrogant? The judge was speechless. He repeatedly asked Ning Shu if he wanted to sue. Ning Shu insisted that he wanted to sue. Finally, the judge read the verdict. Li Bing's face was pale. He looked at Ning Shu fiercely. Ning Shu did not move. According to Article 236, Li Bing raped Wang Ying by violence, coercion, or other means. The verdict is as follows: Li Bing is sentenced to 5 years in prison. Ning Shu's expression was cold. He said, "I don't agree with this verdict." Li Bing also said anxiously, "I don't agree either." The judge first asked Li Bing, "What do you have to disagree with?" "The evidence is conclusive. I'm innocent." Li Bing felt that he was going to be imprisoned for 5 years. It was too fucking wrong. The judge looked at Ning Shu. "What do you have to say? Why only 5 years? I'm under all the pressure. I'm afraid there aren't many cases like this in this court. Because women will hide when they are hurt. More women hide and cry. The cost of a man's crime is so small. Shouldn't the judge increase the sentence? Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. I almost bet my whole life, but I only got 5 years in exchange. And the suspect Li Bing's attitude is not good. He has been stubbornly resisting and even threatening me. When Li Bing is released from prison, he will seek revenge on me. Maybe next time I won't be able to speak and will be a corpse. Your Honor, everyone is equal before the law. But because I'm a woman who was raped, the law won't protect me? I don't represent myself alone. I represent all the women who have been hurt and can't start anew. Should we bear such hurt? Are we going to be bullied by men in the future, and then silently endure the ridicule of others? We are also citizens of this country. We women are also human beings. I just want to enjoy basic human rights. Your Honor and the jury, please reconsider." Ning Shu, the policewoman in the audience, gave him a thumbs up. The judge, that his head hurt. "If you're not satisfied with the result, you can continue to appeal." Ning Shu nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor. Since this is the verdict from the county, I will go to the city. If the city doesn't agree, I will go to the province." Ning Shu shrugged. "Since my life has been ruined, I'll just devote all my energy to the appeal." There was no end to life, no end to appeals. The judge, fuck. Ning Shu counted on his fingers and said, "Your Honor, you may not know this, but in this county alone, there are many women who have been raped, and they all silently swallow their anger. Also, you might not know, but a woman was drowned in the lake. Let's use Li Bing as a powerful deterrent and let everyone see. Bitch, it's Your Honor that I'm here for you." Li Bing and Ning Shu rushed over. Ning Shu was so scared that his face turned pale. He looked terrified and panicked. The courtroom was in chaos. Immediately, a guard restrained Li Bing. Li Bing stretched out his leg to kick Ning Shu. His eyes were red. Obviously, he was angered by Ning Shu. Ning Shu lowered his head and said in a nasal voice, "Your Honor, do you have a daughter? I hope that your female relatives and friends will never have to experience this because it's really, really painful. The rumors come in waves. My parents think that I'm embarrassing the family because of this. Everyone around me is looking at me strangely. I'm the one who was hurt. I just want the bad guy to get the punishment he deserves." The judge, what an unruly citizen. He was saying pitiful words. He was obviously threatening him. The judge knocked on the gavel. The second trial begins. In view of the suspect's attitude and the vile circumstances of the crime, he will be sentenced to 8 years in prison. His performance will be judged in the future. It was good enough that he could get 3 more years. Li Bing was so angry that he went crazy. He screamed and kept scolding Ning Shu. 8 years in prison. If Li Bing didn't perform well in prison, he could get an additional sentence. 8 years was the basic sentence. When Li Bing's mother heard the sentence, she was so angry that she almost fell to the ground. 8 years. Ning Shu walked in front of Li Bing and said, "Li Bing, I hope you can reflect on yourself in prison." As Ning Shu spoke, he sent a stream of energy towards Li Bing's crotch. "Damn woman, shameless woman. You'll die a horrible death. I won't let you go." Li Bing shouted at Ning Shu fiercely. Even though he was driven away, he still turned around and cursed Ning Shu. Ning Shu lowered his head. "Curse all you want. I'm not the one who's going to prison. You'll never get out of prison. Do you really think she's willing to show her face in public like this?" Ning Shu walked out of the court and let out a heavy breath. The policewoman said, "I didn't expect you to be so good at talking." Ning Shu said with a trembling voice, "I made a lot of drafts in advance. These are all memorized by me." "That's not bad. You're right about one thing. Like you, many women have been hurt. But the public opinion of society is too harsh on women. No woman is willing to stand up. In fact, standing up is to protect yourself. The growth of crime is condoned. The role of the law is to regulate society. You know that killing is wrong, but there are still people who are killed. Then the role of the law appears. If you can't make the rules, you have to follow the rules." Ning Shu muttered. Just like the mission enforcers, they have to follow the rules set by the higher-ups. If you don't have the strength to challenge the rules, you'll only be waiting for destruction. "You bitch, you." Li Bing's mom pointed at Ning Shu, her whole body trembling like a sieve. Ning Shu said gently, "Grandma Li, you're old. Don't be too agitated. It's easy to have a stroke." Then Li Bing's mom's body trembled even more. She was angry. Li Bing's mom sat on the ground and slapped her hands. "God is blind. He's bullying an orphan and a widow. God, here it comes again. It's the logic of the weak being reasonable. So what if she's an orphan and a widow? She can do whatever she wants. Others should give in to her. I'm innocent." Li Bing's mom cried with tears and snot. She slandered Ning Shu as a prostitute. There were many, many men. Ning Shu seduced her son. Ning Shu turned around and left, turning a blind eye to this. She didn't want to be entangled with this kind of person. She was always thinking of ways to pull others to the same level. The biggest thing in life was to prove that others were swindlers. Before she left, she would teach this old woman a lesson. She would let her accumulate virtue. If there really was hell, if there really was a punishment of tongue pulling, Li Bing's mom would suffer the pain of having her tongue pulled out for hundreds of years. Stupid, ignorant, and pestering endlessly. Chapter 1521. After the trial ended, Ning Shu took the car home. Ning Shu was not worried that Li Bing would suddenly be released, because Li Bing had no money, no power, and no connections. He should just stay in prison. Ning Shu sent Li Bing to prison in a roundabout way just to let Li Bing fall into the hands of others. He couldn't have anything to do with her, let alone the Wang family. Although the Wang family's parents didn't treat Wang Ying well, they raised Wang Ying. Li Bing must have resentment and revenge after being released from prison for 8 years. If she left, Li Bing would definitely take revenge on the client's family. After leaving, she wouldn't contact the Wang family's parents again. As for what the client thought, it was their business. After a bumpy ride, they finally returned home. Wang Ying's mother was sitting on the threshold knitting a sweater. When she saw Ning Shu, she quickly stood up and asked, "Has Li Bing been released?" "Locked up for 8 years. Wang Ying's mother was stunned. "What did you say? You can lock someone up for 8 years? You are going to marry Li Bing. You can lock him up for 8 years? Wang Ying's mother looked at Ning Shu incredulously. I never knew you were such a cruel person. Wang Ying's mother said. Ning Shu spread his hands and said, Mom, there are many things you don't know. I'll see what you can do for 8 years. This matter hasn't been resolved yet. Wang Ying's mother was a little afraid of Li Bing's revenge. Locked up for 8 years. No matter what, you are going to marry Li Bing. Wang Ying's mother was too lazy to care about Ning Shu. She picked up the wool and the unfinished sweater. The sweater was light blue. She was probably knitting a sweater for Wang Chao. Ning Shu suddenly felt relieved. Everyone's heart was biased. Wang Ying's mother would love whoever she liked. There was no point in being calculative. Ning Shu turned around and prepared to go up the mountain to look for herbs. These herbs were useful. Ning Shu ran all over the mountain and found some fresh herbs. He put them in the cloth bag and was lucky enough to find a ginseng. This place was still considered beautiful, but in modern times, no industrial pollution meant poverty. This place was indeed quite poor. Ning Shu stuck his butt out and dug at the ginseng, but the roots were not damaged at all. She returned home with a full harvest, but there were a lot of people crowding around her door. Her house had become a stage, and every once in a while, there would be a big play. There was also Li Bing's mom's shrill voice, as well as all sorts of fuck the heavens, fuck the earth, fuck the air. The door was closed. Obviously, the whole family was hiding in the house again. Ning Shu finally understood why the client was so weak. It turned out that everyone in the family was so weak. It was obvious that the client was in the wrong, but they didn't dare to say a word. Moreover, Li Bing's mother was an old woman in her 60s. How powerful could she be? She probably got a bad reputation of bullying others with numbers. Why was life so tiring? Someone nagged in your ear every day that it was better to have less trouble. This idea had been instilled in you all the time. How could you not be weak? Even if you married a rapist, it was just a matter of a word from your parents. Plus, you were pregnant. Ning Shu walked over slowly. When Li Bing's mother saw Ning Shu, she immediately shouted, "Everyone, come and judge. How can there be such a cruel woman in the world?" She sent her man to the prison. The onlookers all pointed at Ning Shu and whispered to each other. Ning Shu's hearing was good. He heard some people say that she didn't know what was good for her. It was clearly the best of both worlds, but she had to make things so awkward. There were also people who said that Ning Shu was cruel. In short, he didn't look like a woman at all. Ning Shu glanced at these people and memorized their faces. Those who met Ning Shu's eyes couldn't help but look away to avoid meeting Ning Shu's eyes. How bored must one be to build one's happiness on other people's pain? Therefore, people shouldn't care too much about other people's opinions and words. You can't care what others say. Whether you live well or not, it's none of their business. Even if it's stormy, I won't move. You only know how to use words to attack. Tell me to die. If you have the ability, come and kill me. Li Bing's mother was pestering endlessly. Ning Shu walked over and whispered in her ear, "I'll let your son sit in prison for a long time." Li Bing's mother was so angry that her whole body trembled. She scolded Ning Shu for being a black bitch, a bitch that no man would want. Ning Shu was very calm. These things couldn't attack her at all. No man would want her. Ning Shu patted her chest. She was scared to death. Li Bing's mother sat on the ground, kicking her legs and shrinking her feet. It was boring to use the same trick over and over again. Ning Shu opened the door and went into the house. The house was filled with smoke. It was all Wang Ying's father's smoke. It was very choking. Wang Ying's mother was knitting a sweater with a sad face. However, she didn't knit for a long time. When she saw Ning Shu, she didn't scold her like before. Li Bing was in prison. Wang Ying's mother also knew that she couldn't control her daughter at all. Moreover, her daughter was very cold. Wang Ying's mother almost didn't recognize her daughter. After this incident, her daughter became like this. Their relationship now became very indifferent. Except for the blood relationship, they were like strangers. Wang Ying's father smoked. His eyelids were drooping and he didn't say a word. Ning Shu called for his parents and went into his room. Ning Shu took out the herbs he picked from the mountain and a pinky-sized ginseng. The ginseng that didn't lose its moisture looked quite big. However, once it dried, it didn't look big. Ning Shu put the ginseng near the window and covered it with a cloth. After that, Ning Shu dealt with the herbs he brought back. He found an iron mortar and put the herbs in it. The fresh herbs were pounded into a green juice. Ning Shu weighed the herbs and then added them into the mortar. After that, Ning Shu covered his hands with a plastic bag. He grabbed the herbs and squeezed them hard. The herbal juice dripped into the glass bottle. Ning Shu closed the lid. The loud scolding outside continued. Li Bing's mother scolded tirelessly and threatened Ning Shu. If he didn't get her son out of trouble, she would come here every day to make trouble. You've made your whole family restless and come to make trouble every day. Ning Shu's face was cold. Let's see how long you can make trouble. These people didn't have any sense in their hearts. Let's see how long you can make trouble. Li Bing's mother kept scolding at the door, so the family couldn't go out. After the sky turned dark, Li Bing's mother felt tired and hungry. She said she would come again tomorrow and left. After Li Bing's mother left, the Wang family heaved a sigh of relief. After this incident, Wang Chao didn't go to class. He hid in his room and played games. Even his meals were brought to him by Wang Ying's mother. Ning Shu just snorted. Was Wang Chao paralyzed? He was already an adult, but he still had to bring food to his mouth. Ning Shu didn't even have to think about it. The Wang family's old life could be described as miserable. They raised an enemy to torture themselves. Chapter 1522. Wang Chao was spoiled like a piece of trash, and he was selfish. He was impatient with his family and would start quarreling whenever he was unhappy. Moreover, he was selfish. The client treated this younger brother well. Wang Ying would buy him pens and basketballs whenever she had money. But now that something had happened to his sister, he didn't see anyone stand up for his sister. There wasn't even a word of consolation. Evil people would be dealt with by evil people. The Wang couple weren't evil people, but some things had a cause and effect. Today, everyone turned a blind eye to her. In the future, Wang Chao would also turn a blind eye to the old couple. 4 words, a piece of trash. In the middle of the night, Ning Shu put the glass bottle in his pocket, found a piece of white cloth, took out the embroidery needle, and went to Li Bing's house. Did he really think that she was a person who wouldn't fight back when scolded or hit? Perhaps the client's personality was soft, but she wasn't. Ning Shu was not only thick-skinned now, but his heart was also hard. It was the middle of the night, and the whole village was silent. None of the houses had their lights on. Moreover, there was no moonlight at night. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their fingers. Ning Shu reached out and grabbed the chicken in the chicken coop. He directly twisted the chicken's neck, and blood spurted out. Ning Shu smeared the blood on his face. With a sheet on his body and a face full of blood, Ning Shu looked like a living ghost. Li Bing's house was a little far from here. Ning Shu planned to have some fun on the way. Ning Shu's mind flashed with the faces of some people, and he conveniently went to these houses to take a look. Since they were so superstitious, he would scare them to death. The toilets in the village were all outside the house. Some people would go to the door to use the toilet in the middle of the night. Because it was dark, and there was a vegetable garden in front of the house, they directly began to pee. Every time Ning Shu passed by a house, he would float to the window. Sometimes, he would knock on the window or something to make some noise. He even let out a sinister laugh. Ning Shu saw a woman squatting in front of her house, peeing. He mobilized the qi in his dantian and floated to her side. Ning Shu kicked the woman's body. The woman muttered, "Stop it." Ning Shu kicked her again, and the woman was annoyed. She turned around and saw Ning Shu floating in the air. Her scream was stuck in her throat, and she couldn't make a sound. Ning Shu moved his blood-smeared face closer to her. The woman made a gurgling sound, rolled her eyes, and fainted. Ning Shu floated away after one of them fainted. Then, he scared a few more men. Ning Shu decided to let the kids go for the time being. Especially those gossipy women, Ning Shu paid special attention to them. These vicious words were like a knife dipped in poison, stabbing into people's hearts. These people spoke happily, but some people couldn't take it. For example, Wang Ying drank the pesticide directly. Even if Wang Ying was dead, these people would still point at her corpse and talk about it. They would talk about her life story. "Oh, you were her. You were raped, and now you drink the pesticide." They would talk about it until their saliva flew everywhere. They wouldn't think that it was because of them that she committed suicide. The places Ning Shu floated past were in a mess, and there were dogs barking one after another. The silence of the night was broken. Ning Shu arrived at Li Bing's house. To be honest, Li Bing's house was really poor. The walls were made of mud, and the roof was actually thatched. It made Ning Shu think that it was the 70s or 80s. Li Bing's door was bolted. Ning Shu opened the door through the gap. Ning Shu's eyesight was very good. Even at night, Ning Shu could see very clearly. It was really a bare house. No wonder he was single until now. Moreover, he had such an unreasonable mother. Even if the girl's brains were kicked by a donkey, they wouldn't marry him. However, Li Bing's mom still thought that it was a great thing to let the client marry into their family. It was as if they were climbing up the social ladder. Wasn't it just that if the client was raped, no man would want the client? TSK, even if she didn't marry for the rest of her life, she wouldn't abuse herself with essential bomb. Ning Shu went to the bedroom. Li Bing's mom was sleeping on the bed. However, Ning Shu saw 2 pillows. One person needs 2 pillows. Ning Shu couldn't help but have a rather disgusting thought in his heart. Could it be that Li Bing was in his 40s, and he was still sleeping with his mother? However, maybe Li Bing's mom liked to sleep with 2 pillows. Ning Shu walked to the bedside. Li Bing's mom was snoring with her mouth open. Ning Shu opened the glass bottle and poured all the herbal juice in the bottle into her mouth. Li Bing's mom smacked her lips in her sleep and didn't wake up. Ning Shu gently lifted the thin quilt, took out an embroidery needle, and pricked Li Bing's mom's leg. When a person was old, they would definitely have some kind of arthritis. Although it wasn't a major problem, if it was serious, the bones would be deformed, and the pain would be unbearable. If the meridians were blocked, the illness would become more and more serious. After pricking the needle, Li Bing's mom groaned twice. In the end, she didn't wake up. Ning Shu covered her with the thin quilt and pricked her hand. After doing these things, Ning Shu turned around and left, closing the door on the way. The previous haunted incident made the village a little restless. Ning Shu didn't put on the quilt anymore. Instead, he carried the quilt and flew home. Ning Shu washed the dried chicken blood off his face and quietly returned to his room. The next day, the topic of discussion in the village was no longer Ning Shu. Instead, it was the haunted incident last night. Many people who went out to pee fainted in fright. Those who shared the same bed woke up and found that the person next to them was not by their side. When they went out to look for him, they fainted on the ground. They didn't even pull up their pants. Anyway, they were so scared that they peed. Many people said that they saw it with their own eyes. They were floating and their feet didn't touch the ground. Wang Ying's mom woke up in the morning to feed the chickens. She saw a hen laying eggs without a head. Its body was lying naked in the chicken coop. Wang Ying's mom was about to explode with anger. She opened her mouth and was about to scold. Forget it. Don't make a fuss. Boil some water and boil the chicken feathers. Stew it. Wang Ying's dad said. Their family was already eye-catching. It wouldn't be good if they became a joke because of the chickens. Wang Ying's mom's face was ugly. She carried the naked chicken and boiled the water to pluck the feathers. At noon, there was an additional meat dish on the table. The chicken was very fresh and tender. From the start, Wang Chao went for the thigh with the most meat. Ning Shu took the chopsticks and patted Wang Chao's hand. A red mark immediately appeared on the back of Wang Chao's hand. Wang Ying, what are you doing? Wang Chao looked at Ning Shu angrily. Ning Shu grabbed 2 chicken legs. One for Wang Ying's mom and the other for Wang Ying's dad. You eat. Anyway, she left this time. She won't come back during her mission. The environment here was really depressing. Wang Ying's dad's expression was complicated. Don't give it to me. You eat. He said and gave the chicken leg to Ning Shu. Wang Ying's mom gave the chicken leg to her son. Wang Chao looked at Ning Shu triumphantly. Chapter 1523. After lunch, Li Bing's mom started to cause trouble again. She cursed loudly at the door, but her throat was a little uncomfortable today and her voice was a little hoarse. Moreover, her throat was very painful. Even swallowing her saliva hurt. Li Bing's mom thought that her throat was injured because she cursed too hard yesterday. However, when she thought of her son, she realized that only Wang Ying could save her son now. Why was Wang Ying, that bitch, so annoying? As long as she said that she was willing, her son would be fine. Li Bing's mom would pester them and make it difficult for them to live. Naturally, they would let her son go. However, Li Bing's mom's throat was uncomfortable, so she was powerless. She had to rest after cursing for a while. Otherwise, her throat would not be able to take it. Sometimes, she would go to the side to ask for a glass of water. However, there were obviously fewer onlookers today because everyone was scared by the ghost last night. Especially those who had seen the ghost last night, they were now hiding in their beds and shivering. Li Bing and Wang Ying's nonsense was already outdated. Many people felt that they should find a witch to exorcise the ghost. They did not know where the ghost was wandering in this village. They even agreed not to sleep at night. Everyone would gather together and see what the ghost was like. What the hell was it? Li Bing's mom was not in a good state today. After cursing for a while, she had to rest. Did the Wang family do what they were supposed to do? Li Bing's mom was furious. She shouted loudly, her voice leaking, Wang Ying, if you don't get my son out, I will die in front of your house. Li Bing's mom attracted many onlookers. This kind of desperate trick was the most attractive. Li Bing's mom saw so many people and was happy. She directly hit the wall. Some people were quick and pulled her, preventing Li Bing's mom from hitting the wall. Some people couldn't stand it anymore and said to Wang Ying's father, look at them. Li Bing is going to jail. Who will take care of his mother at such an old age? Old Wang, that's enough. If she really dies in your house, it's your family's responsibility. Besides, aren't Li Bing and Wang Ying about to get married? What's the point of making such a fuss? We're all from the same village. Why are you so ruthless? Don't go too far when doing things. That way, we'll be on good terms in the future. The discussion around them made Wang Ying's father's back hunch even more. He was speechless. Ning Shu looked at these people and felt that it was easy for them to talk. Each and every one of them was the representative of the true, kind, and beautiful. Each and every one of them was a pure white lotus. It seemed like she hadn't been scared out of her wits last night. Otherwise, how could she still have the time to care about other people's business and be generous with other people's money? I think you should do it. What right did he have to ask others to do anything if he had never felt the pain? What was wrong with this world? It was clearly the wrong side, but they were so arrogant. She was a woman who was raped. If Li Bing was the murderer, these people would stay far away from Li Bing's mom. Li Bing's mom saw that so many people were speaking up for her. She immediately sat on the ground and cried. However, her throat was leaking and her voice was very strange. It was sometimes high and sometimes low. It seemed that Li Bing's mom couldn't control her voice. Ning Shu counted silently in his heart. Soon, very soon. Wang Ying, what do you think about this? Wang Ying's father looked at Ning Shu. His face was very tired. He was an old and poor farmer with his back facing the sky. Wang Ying's father was obviously going to compromise. Ning Shu sighed in his heart and didn't say anything. Okay, I will take Wang Ying to the county's police station tomorrow. Can you stop making trouble? Wang Ying's mother said impatiently. Li Bing's mom trembled from the ground and immediately said, "This is what you said. If you don't go back on your words, I will come to your house to make trouble." This matter was resolved, and the surrounding people also dispersed. Ning Shu's face was cold. Wang Ying's mother looked at Ning Shu cautiously. You see, there is no point in making trouble like this. Why don't you let Li Bing out? Then I will marry Li Bing, right? Ning Shu turned and went into the house and closed the door. It was said that a mother was strong, but Wang Ying's mother never said anything. Ning Shu was a little suspicious that the person who entrusted the marriage was not the Wang couple's child. Their daughter was wronged, but she still compromised. Yes, she was definitely not their biological daughter. See, only by being strong oneself is the foundation. Good things in the world are not firm. Colorful clouds scatter easily. Love is the most beautiful thing in the world, but it can't stand up to torture. At night, Ning Shu went door to door to visit these people. Ning Shu made his face look extremely ferocious. Ning Shu used the fiery sun energy in his body and floated in the air. A few more people fainted from fright. Although these people were in a group, there were other people in the house. Ning Shu used the Qi gene in his body and used his hand to press a child's footprint on the glass. Ning Shu's hand left a mark on the glass, and this mark will always be there. Some were pressed on the door, some were pressed on the ground. Moreover, the size was different, making it very messy, making people feel that there was more than one person. Ning Shu didn't leave his own footprint. If he left it, when people track it down, the size of his footprint would match hers. This was shooting himself in the foot. Ning Shu wanted to turn this place into a bomb. After that, Ning Shu went to Li Bing's house and gave Li Bing's mom an injection. He also left a footprint on the door of his house. After doing these things, Ning Shu returned home. Li Bing should have news by now. It's been a long time. It was almost dawn. After a busy night, Ning Shu stretched and lay on the bed to take a nap. What he did yesterday would cause an uproar in the village. It's easy for you to talk while standing. At dawn, the atmosphere in the village was strange. Someone quickly went to invite the witch. It was really too scary. To leave footprints on the door and the glass, and they were the footprints of a child. Looking at the footprints, the youngest one was less than a year old. There were also messy footprints. It was really scary. When the witch saw this situation, she was dumbfounded. This witch was so mysterious, but she just wanted to scam people for food. Seeing this situation, she couldn't help but have goosebumps. Could it be that there were really ghosts in this village? The villagers asked the witch what was going on, where the ghosts came from, and why did they come to their village. The witch was speechless. Who the hell knew what was going on? The witch shook her head crazily and jumped around for a while, as if she was having epilepsy. The bells on her body jingled as she mumbled something under her breath. In the end, the witch came to the conclusion that it was a group of ghosts that ran out. All she needed to do was burn some paper for them. Every family in the village had to burn paper for 7 days. Then, the witch took the money that the villagers gathered and ran away in a hurry, as if there was a malicious ghost chasing after her. Chapter 1524. With such a thing happening in the village, everyone was terrified. They did whatever the witch told them to do. Li Bing's mom didn't come to scold them today. First, she was terrified because there were footprints on her door. The older she got, the more superstitious she became. First, she felt that her body was very heavy. Her hands and feet were uncomfortable. It seemed that her rheumatism was acting up. Generally speaking, this disease only hurt when it was cloudy or rainy. Second, her throat hurt so much that it was difficult for her to speak. Li Bing's mom felt that she might be under the pressure of a ghost. Her son was not by her side. It was as if she had lost her backbone. Li Bing's mom hurried to find the witch. The witch took the money and gave her a bowl of talisman water. At night, the whole village was covered in thick smoke. People were burning joss paper on every road. Many people were kowtowing in all directions and muttering. Not every family in the village had footprints, but when they saw that everyone was doing it, they also burned joss paper. Wang Ying's dad also took a bundle of yellow paper and burned it on the road outside the house. Wang Ying's mom called Wang Chao into the house to burn joss paper with her. Wang Chao impatiently said that he was not free. Ning Shu shrugged her shoulders guiltily. What a big fuss. Ning Shu was too lazy to pretend to be a ghost to scare people. She heard that several people in the village had fallen ill from fright. Even without Ning Shu's harassment, the villagers were still nervous. They burned joss paper every night for 7 days. Ning Shu felt that it was time for her to leave. She had some money on hand. It was enough for her to buy a bus ticket and live for a while. When she reached the city, she could live no matter what. If she didn't have a place to live, she could live under a bridge. She could shelter herself from the wind and rain anywhere. Besides, she still had a ginseng. Now the ginseng was beginning to dry. Ning Shu protected it well and didn't let the skin break. The roots gathered together. Now she just had to wait for news from the police station. This was not as simple as going to jail. It was too easy. Li Bing's mom saw that Ning Shu's family didn't keep their word, so she went to Ning Shu's house to make trouble. But this time, Li Bing's mom couldn't scold her again. Her voice was already very hoarse, and it was very difficult for her to speak. Sometimes, she would swallow her own saliva and the pain would cause her tears to fall. Eating and drinking was extremely painful. Li Bing's mom was not feeling well and could not speak, but she insisted for her son's sake. Her son was put in jail because of someone. Li Bing's mom pointed her finger at Ning Shu and said with great effort. It was basically impossible to hear what she was saying, only that she was shouting with all her might. Ning Shu tilted his face and put his ear close to Li Bing's mom. He asked, "What are you talking about? I can't hear anything. Grandma Li, are you possessed by a ghost? Why can't you even speak?" When the surrounding people heard this, they immediately moved away from Li Bing's mom. Li Bing's mom was agitated, and her face was red. She spoke loudly, but her voice was too hoarse, and the syllables were unclear. It was difficult to hear what she was saying. "Nbai!" Li Bing's mom shouted hoarsely. Tears came out of her eyes, and her throat was so painful that it was about to explode. Ning Shu's expression did not change. He said loudly, "Grandma Li, what are you talking about?" Li Bing's mom was so angry that she hit her head against the wall. Last time, someone pulled her, but something so strange happened before. Li Bing's mom was like this, and she couldn't even speak. It was as if she was possessed by a ghost. No one dared to pull her. Ning Shu grabbed Li Bing's mom. He had never seen such an arrogant blackmailer. Li Bing's mom was so arrogant because the Wang family did not resist once. If the Wang family had taken the initiative, they would not have fallen to this point. He was being held hostage by a shameless old woman. It was not that the longer one lived, the more one understood. Some people became more and more muddle-headed as they lived, and their age was fed to the dogs. Li Bing's mom's clothes were grabbed by Ning Shu. She could not move, and she could not break free. She was so angry that she hissed. Li Bing's mom had a lot to say, but she could not say a word. She sat on the ground and clapped her hands on the ground. Tears came out of her eyes. Ning Shu's heart did not waver. The person who asked her for help had been tortured by her. Li Bing's mom's mouth was the sharpest weapon in the world. Every word stabbed at people's hearts. It was as if she had a deep hatred for her. Now she could not say a word. In the future, she could not run to her house to blackmail her. At this time, the sound of sirens came from the entrance of the village. Why would the police come at this time? Ning Shu raised the corner of his mouth. They finally came. Li Bing's mom, who was sitting on the ground crying, heard the sirens. She got up from the ground and looked at Ning Shu hesitantly. Ning Shu was also at a loss. Everyone hurried to the entrance of the village. Behind the police car was an ambulance. 2 policemen got out of the police car and asked, "Is Li Bing's family here?" Li Bing's mom quickly walked over and said for a long time in a hoarse voice. In the end, the uncle who served tea was confused and said in a businesslike manner, "You are Li Bing's family, right?" The people around said, "She is Li Bing's mother." The uncle said, "That's good. Li Bing had some problems in prison. He is now dead." There was an uproar. Li Bing's mom was at a loss at first. She did not seem to react. Until Li Bing's body was pushed out of the ambulance and in front of her. She saw her son's face. His face was ashen. His eyes were tightly closed and there was frost on his face. It was obvious that he had been pulled out of the freezer. Li Bing's mom's eyes widened. There was a gurgling sound in her throat. Her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Li Bing's mom could not accept her son's sudden death. Her backbone was gone. When Li Bing's mom fainted, there was no one to take care of the body. The uncle who served tea was speechless. Under the guidance of the villagers, they carried Li Bing's body to Li Bing's house. Then, they carried the unconscious Li Bing's mom back. Everyone felt that it was very sudden. They did not understand why Wang Chao suddenly died. Was prison that scary? After placing Li Bing's body in the hall, the police went to the village chief to explain the situation. What was the specific situation? Li Bing's cause of death was hemorrhage. As for why, it was a bit strange. It was because Li Bing's indescribable erection continued. His corpus cavernosum continued to be engorged. At first, the symptoms were not obvious. Later, it became harder and harder. Even his pants were erect. The person who was locked up with Li Bing deliberately poked Li Bing's indescribable erection. He laughed and said, as expected of a rapist, "You have some capital." Li Bing thought that it would slowly disappear. However, the indescribable erection was getting more and more painful. It was like a stone. He could not even pee. It was about to explode. It was originally a very shameful thing. Li Bing had no choice but to go to the higher-ups and explain his situation. Li Bing was transferred to the hospital. The doctor first gave Li Bing a blood test. Generally speaking, this kind of continuous engorgement was caused by eating a lot of stimulants, such as Viagra. Chapter 1525. Li Bing held on like this. When he arrived at the hospital, the doctor did a blood test and found nothing abnormal. However, Li Bing's indescribable part continued to be filled with blood. The situation was getting worse and there were no signs of it dissipating. It was swollen and bruised. It was as if he was high on drugs, but there was nothing abnormal in the blood. Even the doctor didn't understand what was going on. Li Bing was in unbearable pain. He felt like he was going to explode. He was like a balloon that had been blown to the extreme. His skin and flesh felt like it was going to burst. The doctor couldn't find the reason. After all, there were many strange things in this world. However, if this continued, Li Bing would die. Moreover, the sponge in that part would die because of the continuous congestion. It would be life-threatening. The doctor discussed cutting off his lower part and telling Li Bing the results of the study. Li Bing was stunned when he heard this. Cutting off his little brother. Exercise. The doctor explained all the pros and cons to Li Bing, but no man wanted to cut off his little brother. Besides peeing, it was also related to a man's dignity. Li Bing didn't want to become a modern version of a eunuch. Li Bing didn't agree anyway. Although it was painful, he could feel the existence of his little brother. Li Bing felt even more annoyed. If Li Bing didn't agree to the surgery, the hospital wouldn't force it. Li Bing endured it, hoping that this situation could be cured without medication. However, the situation didn't go as Li Bing expected. Instead, it was getting worse. First, the indescribable part was extremely uncomfortable. Now, even his balls were swollen. His lower body was beginning to inflame. If this continued, he would really die. Li Bing could only agree to the surgery. Li Bing still had to get out of prison to find trouble with Ning Shu. All of this was brought to him by that woman. Li Bing mourned his little brother in his heart. He even cried on the operating table. However, things didn't go in a good direction. His little brother was cut off along with his balls, but the bleeding didn't stop. Moreover, the bleeding kept increasing. It seemed like it couldn't be stopped. Even a blood transfusion couldn't control the amount of bleeding. Li Bing died of shock due to excessive blood loss. The police explained the situation to the village chief. The surrounding people were dumbfounded. Was he dead? Ning Shu laughed out loud. He bent over and laughed until tears came out of his eyes. Everyone looked at Ning Shu. This is the justice of the heavens. Let's see who the heavens will spare. Ning Shu's voice was gloomy and carried an indescribable gloominess. Some people couldn't help but rub their arms as goosebumps appeared on their arms. Ning Shu thought that it was very fun to scare people like this. This was Ning Shu's purpose. Li Bing's death had nothing to do with her. If it were to fall into the hands of others, even Li Bing's mom would not be able to achieve anything. Besides, Li Bing's mom wouldn't be able to say it again. He was doing her a favor. The Wang family swept away their previous decadent appearance. Li Bing's death meant that no one would come to take revenge on them in the future. Although it was a matter of life and death, the Wang family was still secretly happy that this invisible bomb was gone. Li Bing's mom, who had fainted, woke up. When she saw the corpse in the hall, she opened her mouth to cry, but no sound came out. The people around her advised her to take it easy. Li Bing's mom couldn't speak. The villagers just thought that she was too shocked. That was why she lost her voice. Li Bing's mom gritted her teeth and wanted to find trouble with Ning Shu. Many people advised her to arrange her son's funeral first. Li Bing's mom lost her son and was terrified. She didn't know what to do. The villagers helped to bury Li Bing hastily. Li Bing's mom couldn't say a word from the beginning to the end. She couldn't even communicate with people. She was not as eloquent as before. Perhaps the blow was too big. Li Bing's mom's health was not as good as before. The rheumatism in her hands and feet was serious. When the weather was bad, it hurt to walk 2 steps. Li Bing's mom ran to Ning Shu's house and made a fuss. She wanted Ning Shu to go to her house. Even if her son was dead, she wanted Ning Shu to go to her house to be a widow. They had agreed to get married. Most importantly, Li Bing's mom wanted to find someone to serve her. She couldn't imagine how she could live alone. However, after pointing for a long time, she didn't know what she wanted to say. They had seen this trick too many times. Even the onlookers didn't want to see it. Besides, Li Bing's mom couldn't speak at all. It was like watching a mime show. It was too boring. Ning Shu was too lazy to care about her. Let's see how long you can make a fuss. Ning Shu wrapped the dried ginseng in a cloth and put it in his bag. Then, he put it in his pocket and stuffed it under the bed. The villagers were still burning joss paper. It would take 7 days. At night, the smell of smoke wafted everywhere. The corners of Ning Shu's mouth curled up. She released an invisible force and blew away the paper that these people burned. Sparks flew everywhere. Encountering such a strange thing, many people jumped up and covered their ears and screamed. It was very chaotic. Screams and barks came one after another. It was too interesting. Every family was so scared that they hurriedly went into their houses and closed their doors. Wang Ying's dad shook his head and said, "The village is too strange this year." Wang Ying's mom was looking outside through the door. She touched her chest and said, "It is very strange." Wang Ying's mom looked frightened. "Do you want us to move out of this village?" "Move? Where?" Wang Chao's dad smoked. With their family's financial conditions, it was impossible for them to move. When the time came, they might not even have a place to live. Moreover, this was their hometown. Where would they move to? Wang Ying's dad sighed and kept smoking. He looked tired and old. "Then let's move to the city. The schools in the city are better than our schools here," Wang Chao suggested excitedly. The outside world was incomparably attractive to boys. Wang Ying's dad looked serious. "Your dad doesn't have the ability. You should give up." Ning Shu listened to the family's discussion and did not participate. She planned to leave late that night. There was no point in staying in this place. The people who needed to be dealt with had been dealt with. It was time to leave. In the middle of the night, the whole village was quiet. Ning Shu wrote a note and said that she was going out and there was no need to look for her. Ning Shu carried her bag and quietly went out. She walked to the town and got on the bus. In order to prevent the client from thinking too much, she had to distract herself and let her understand the meaning of her existence. If she had her own job or career and found the meaning of her existence, she might not care so much about being raped. There was no time to be sad. Ning Shu planned to go to the big city. There were many opportunities in the big city. She thought that with her skills, she could always live a peaceful life. As long as she wanted to live, she would definitely be able to live. Life could be tough or fragile. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.